All right, good afternoon. It is now 12:36 p.m. We're going to go ahead and get started with our hearing for today. Once again, good afternoon. I am Councilman John Bullock, Chair of our Education, Youth, and Older Adults Committee. We are gathered here today to discuss 250042R, informational hearing, impact of federal immigration enforcement on city schools. Before we begin, I do want to let everyone know that today's hearing is being translated simultaneously into Spanish, and I would ask everyone speaking today to please slow down just a touch to assist with our translation. Those online can also access simultaneous translation by clicking on the globe button on the bottom left corner of WebEx, if you're on the computer, or by selecting Spanish at the bottom of your phone screen. And we have simultaneously translation technology available for anyone in the chamber who would like to make use of it. In addition, we have 2 translators in the chamber for individuals who would like to testify in Spanish. If they could please raise their hands. If you would like to testify in Spanish, please let one of our translators know when you make your way up to the podium. Also, if you're not able to find a seat in council chambers, there's overflow space in the current room. I also want to kick it over to Vice Chair Parker, who's also going to give the same comments in Spanish. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Buenas tardes y bienvenidos a todos. Antes de comenzar, quisiera compartir un anuncio sobre la disponibilidad de servicios de interpretación. Para miembros de la comunidad siguiendo la audiencia en línea, usando una computadora se puede acceder a la interpretación por hacer clic en la imagen del globo en la esquina izquierda de WebEx en la pantalla. Si usan un teléfono para escuchar, elijan Spanish, elijan español, no sé, en la parte inferior de la pantalla. Para los que están participando aquí dentro del ayuntamiento, hay intérpretes para los que quieren dar su testimonio en español. Las intérpretes, por favor, póngase de pie para que podamos verlas. Si usted prefiere escuchar la discusión en español, por favor, levante su mano ahora. Un miembro del personal le traerá el equipo para escuchar la información en español. También, si no hay espacio aquí, no hay asientos aquí, pueden usar el cuarto Karen al otro lado del pasillo y pueden entrar en su turno para dar su testimonio. Gracias por su participación.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parker. Also today, we are joined by Vice Chair Parker, also Vice President Sharon Green Middleton of the 6th District, also Councilmember Jermaine Jones of the 12th District, Councilmember Odette Ramos of the 14th District, and also Paris Gray of the 8th District. We also have representatives from the Mayor's Office, from the Council President's Office, Baltimore City Schools, Baltimore Teachers Union. I also see CASA here, I see Build here, I see a whole host of others who are gathered here with us today. And also we have our great staff to the committee, Julianne Jamat. So again, today we are here to discuss this informational hearing around the impact of federal immigration enforcement on city students. So for the purpose of inviting representatives of the Baltimore City Public School System, the Health Department, the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and any interested stakeholders to appear before the City Council to discuss the impact the escalated federal immigration enforcement is having on city schools. I also want to mention that we've also been joined by Zach Blanchard, Councilman for the 11th District. Before kicking it over to Vice Chair Parker and then to Councilmember Ramos, I do want to thank them both for their strong leadership on this issue. But I will also note that this is something that is very important to the entire City Council, the entire committee, which is why we are here today. We recognize that the threat that our immigrant brothers and sisters are faced at this time affects us all. We think about this from a point of safety. We think about this as a point of not only physical health, but also mental health. We want to be a city that is welcoming, but is also responsible in the work that we do and making sure that our citizens, our residents, our community members are whole and safe. So with that, I do want to give some time to Vice Chair Parker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody, for being here. First, I'd like to thank Councilwoman Ramos and my colleagues who co-sponsored this and everyone who helped to make today's conversation possible. I'd also like to thank our city agencies, city schools, our panelists and community members for being here and sharing your time and expertise with us. Families across Baltimore are living with significant and mounting fear and uncertainty due to lawless and violent federal immigration enforcement. The impact of that enforcement is felt not only by the individuals and families directly impacted, but by everyone connected with them in their neighborhood, their classrooms, their religious communities, their social circles. Today, our responsibility is to better understand what these realities mean for Baltimore's children and their families, and for the educators, providers, and organizations that serve them every day. The purpose of today's hearing is to listen and learn. We are here to better understand both the measurable impacts and the lived experiences of our neighbors. This information will help the council better evaluate our current efforts as a city to support and protect our young people and their families, and will help to guide our future decisions around spending, policy, and programs. We want to hear from young people and their families about how federal immigration enforcement is affecting them directly and indirectly. We want to better understand what educators, healthcare providers, and community organizations are seeing with respect to student well-being, including stress, anxiety, trauma, and students' sense of safety and belonging. We hope to learn whether schools are observing changes in enrollment, attendance, chronic absenteeism, student engagement, social emotional well-being, and academic outcomes. Through these conversations, we will gain a better understanding of what is already being done to support young people and their families, and where there may be gaps or evolving needs that require more attention from government agencies as well as from city stakeholders, from community stakeholders and service providers. Ultimately, our goal is to leave today with a clearer understanding of how violent, capricious, unsafe, and often illegal federal immigration enforcement activity is directly affecting Baltimore City young people, and what role the city can continue to play in ensuring that every young person has the right to grow up and learn in a safe and supportive community. I want to thank again all of our agency presenters, panelists, and witnesses in advance for your testimony and for helping us better understand these important issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parker. Councilmember Ramos, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the Vice Chair for being such a great advocate and partner in this work, as well as all of my colleagues. I first want to thank all of my colleagues in the City Council for their steadfast support of our immigrant community and in making some sacrifices to be able to add more dollars into the budget this year to add the 1.6 million into MEMA's budget so that we can have more support for our young people. That is extremely important, and I just wanted to share publicly my thanks to my colleagues and to the mayor's office for working with us on that. But we're not done. We have a lot more work to do. And we see every day, you might see one or two things on video, but my colleague from the 1st District who's seeing it the most, and myself seeing our community, the Latino community, the immigrant community attacked every day, and how violence has such an impact on young people, whether it's being seeing the impact, seeing what's happening with their friends and their families, but also the impact when they are separated from their parents. No one deserves to be in that situation. And I'm grateful to, again, my colleagues in the mayor's office for being steadfast in saying that that is not acceptable. Not here. And we are doing everything we possibly can, passing laws, bringing in more dollars, everything we possibly can to try to support and to protect our young people and our immigrant community. So today, we're going to hear more about what our community is going through. And again, this just doesn't impact our immigrant community and our Latino community. Every student who is supporting another student is impacted. All of our families are seeing these tragedies happen every single day. And we have to take a stand, be brave, and show that we will not accept this, that this is not normal, that attacking one community because of how they speak, because of how they look, is just not acceptable. And so continuing to have these conversations in this chamber and publicly is very important for Baltimore to be seen as a leader in this work. But more importantly, for us to hold all of our institutions that are supposed to be protecting our young people, protecting our immigrant community, protecting our families, making sure that they have all of the tools that they need to be able to do that and protect and do exactly what needs to be done for all of our families. And so that is what this hearing is about, to learn more about what still needs to be done so that we can work to make sure it gets done. And so I appreciate everybody being here today. Pretty proud of myself for holding it together. Again, as I've said publicly, this is very, very, very deeply, deeply personal for me. You know, as the first Latina, first Hispanic elected official in Baltimore City, and knowing that my community members, my brothers and sisters, my children, are absolutely being targeted. And for the city to be backing us up to say, no, that's not acceptable is really important. And we will continue to work with all of our partners to make sure, again, like I said before, that you have all the tools that you need to make sure that we can protect our young people, and that our young people deserve an opportunity to live, grow, and play here in Baltimore City. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No, thank you for your ongoing leadership and strong passion for such an important issue. I also want to note that we're also joined by some leaders from our Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, so thank you for joining us as well. Also want to note, as Councilmember Ramos mentioned, in our city's budget, the commitment to immigrant services. And one of the things I would mention is that just like how council chambers was full during taxpayer night, it's also full again today, which speaks to the importance of this issue. So again, we will continue on this fight. And with that, we have some presentations that are queued up for us. I know first we'll have one from Baltimore City Public Schools. We'll also have Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success, Immigrant Affairs, and Department of Health. So with that, City Schools, please go ahead with your presentation, whether it be from your seat or from the podium. It's all up to you. No, not at all. Whatever you prefer.
Good afternoon, Chair Bullock and Vice Chair Parker, all other council members, and those who are present in the chamber. I am Tracy Durant. I'm the Senior Executive Director in the Office of Equity for Baltimore City Public Schools, joined today by our Chief Legal Officer, Josh Siven, and our Chief of Communications, Engagement, and Enrollment, Tina Hike-Hubbard. Before we get into our presentation, I want to acknowledge in his absence our CEO, Dr. Jermaine Dawson, as well as you mentioned our commissioners who are present, Commissioner Kenyatta Bay and Commissioner Esposito. We're joined by our Legislative Director, some principals that you will hear from momentarily, and I did also notice members of our BTU, our Baltimore Teachers Union leadership and members in the chamber as well. So I can get this. Great. So I want to start by acknowledging that City Schools has really focused our efforts in terms of the response to immigration around three key areas in terms of being proactive, being responsive, and supporting our students, staff, and families. We've taken a very proactive approach to addressing this issue. So shortly after the change in administration, we went to activation in terms of making sure that we are providing support and resources to our school communities, our families, so that we can continue to develop and continue to maintain the trust that we've earned from our families by building positive relationships with our students and our families. And we believe like this is a key factor in how we're going to be able to mitigate the potential impacts of federal immigration enforcement on enrollment and attendance. We believe, as we've stated since the beginning of this, that we want our spaces in our classroom buildings, in our classrooms and in our school buildings to be safe, to be places where our families want to send their children because they know that they'll be safe. They are valued, they are respected, and they are supported. And we focus really on the safe and inclusive environments because we know that is what gets young people to come to the learning environment. One of the things that I want to name is in terms of us being proactive and being responsive, we started putting together a lot of resources for our school leaders, which you'll hear from their perspective, as well as resources for families. One of the first steps we took was issuing guidance for school leaders. I want to name that in our training of school leaders, in our engagement with school leaders, we made sure that we focused on that which we control. And I think it's important to name that. We focused a lot on, there are a lot of things that are happening in our environment, locally and nationally, that we are concerned about. There are certainly things that we can influence, which is evident by the work that the council does. And also, we don't control those things. What we control is what happens when young people enter our buildings. We control what happens in their classroom environments. We control those experiences that they have. And so we were very quick to issue guidance after the Federal Protected Areas policy was rescinded. We went back and issued updated guidance. We are constantly updating guidance. As the law and policies change, we activate very quickly. We update the guidance. We get it out to school leaders as quickly as possible. I should say school leaders and central office. We update that guidance as they change, and we receive feedback from school leaders. So one of the things that we do is we are constantly engaging with school leaders as they are telling us about the experiences that they are having, that their students are having, that the families are having. We are adjusting our guidance and our training protocols to support them. We're making another round of updates as we are getting ready to enter the start of a new school year in just about 4 weeks. The guidance lays out our immigration protocols. It provides answers to frequently asked questions, and it gives school leaders templates that they can use with their communities and with their staff. So one of the things that Chief Hike Hubbard, Chief Sivan, and I have done, as you can see, we've trained over 800 of our school-based central office staff and partners. So we tried to get to people who are having frequent interactions with our young people, making sure they know what to do if something should happen. Shortly after providing the guidance to school leaders, we developed several training decks and answers to commonly asked questions. Those questions came to us from our school leaders, from our teachers. And so if they ask us a question, we're adding it to our frequently asked questions. We're adding it to our training protocols. While we always try to be proactive, we are also really focused on being responsive. So we want to make sure that our school leaders, especially, and our teachers know that they are not alone as things are happening. And so they have considerable access to us and a group of individuals who are helping us to lead this work. We revised our protocols as we were learning more about what people were experiencing around what is considered city schools property, field trips, home visits, things like people are showing up to people's homes. I don't know if they're city schools or somebody else. And so we had to put protocols in place to make sure that they could recognize that they were city schools people conducting home visits. What that means when students are riding buses and district-sponsored events in the community, and we've added those things to our training as well. We've provided refresher trainings during the course of the year. We've trained community school coordinators. We've trained bus drivers. We've trained front office staff. You name it, we've trained them. We've trained our school police on how to engage as we are moving through this. A lot of our trainings now include scenarios, and those scenarios are based on actual events that have taken place in schools and communities, and what we are using to process information, to analyze the validity of some of the things that come to us, and how people should respond to keep students, families, and staff safe. One of the things that we know happens is this is a very personal experience for a lot of our staff. Not only are they living through this, they are leading through this, they are teaching through this, but they are also having some of their own personal experiences with this. And so we want to make sure that the protocols and the guidance that we put in place helps them to stay focused on what we need to do to support young people, while also honoring the experience that they're having and holding them as fully human as well. In terms of we stood up an immigration webpage very quickly after everything started to increase. That webpage has a lot of resources for our community, our larger city schools community. And so you'll hear a little bit more in a moment about our Know Your Rights resources. We have resources from partners we trust. You named some of them who are present in the room, and we have very close relationships with them. They've helped us develop guidance, and we are in constant relationship with them. Our protocols, documents, and then letters to the city schools community where we are continuing to reaffirm our commitment to keeping all of our young people safe. We have 2 pages, we have 1 pages, we have 2 pages, we have our message from the district. We want to be clear that city schools is a place where we will take care of every single student we serve, and being in full recognition that there are moments when some communities are more vulnerable than others, and so we need to make sure that we are equipped, that our central office staff is equipped, and that our school leaders are equipped to make sure that we are providing safe spaces for every single person that we serve. I'm going to turn it over to Chief Sivan, who will share a little bit more about our protocols, followed by some of the data that we brought to share with you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and thanks for having us. Just to be really clear, it's been very important as we advance to the next slide, if we can, that we are using all the legal tools at our disposal for city schools to support our students, support our staff, and I can't emphasize enough the conversations that we've had with school leaders who have come, and having just on time legal guidance, legal response has been critical in this work. Our protocols, in addition to having lots of guidance, which is the details, our staff want to know, our school secretaries want to know that if something happens in the school, they've got a 2-pager. So we've got the 2-pager there, and of the steps, we hope and pray that ICE will not be targeting enforcement at our schools, but we want to be prepared as if we do. And this guidance is very clear that if that happens, the first call is to my office. And I can't tell you how many people have my cell phone personally to reach out to me if it's needed, and to make sure we elevate those concerns and get responses right away. So that's one thing I wanted to stress. The other thing I want to stress in the next slide just quickly is that we have been really student-facing and student responsive and staff responsive in this. So there were a number of places where we said, and this work has forced us to tighten and update our protocols. So we had students coming to us and saying, it's not clear if I get an excused absence if I need to be in court for a hearing. And we said, yes, that's the policy, but folks said, I want to see that in the policy. I want to reflect it. Commissioner Esposito here was a big proponent of this. So we revised our regulations to make that clear. And it's important also in this work, we made that clear for immigration enforcement, but I also took the opportunity to make that clear for any law enforcement. If you have to be there because your parent is being detained for another reason, we want you to be able to support your parent. And we also want to understand that being in school is really important, so we can provide support. So being part of that family emergency, dealing with it, and then getting yourself back to school is critical there. Other policies here, I won't emphasize those in interest of time, except for to say that, just to be really clear, that we are not collecting information based on immigration status, and we are not disclosing that to anybody else if perchance we know about that. We have made that clear, we've emphasized that, and some of this emphasizing, it's really law in action, because the response from our community is to see these clear means that they understand the rules that school is gonna operate to keep them safe. Final thing I'll emphasize is, this was in the spring, again in response. There have been a lot of organizations that have put out Know Your Rights brochures, and we support them, many of them in the room, and appreciate them, but also had a push from people to say, well, what city school stands? So we worked to put together and synthesize the best of that to put out a Know Your Rights city schools branded. We worked with the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs on this to make sure that it was aligned, resources accessible to parents and families. And we also were sensitive about making sure that our staff, our schools, when they distributed this, had the context to distribute this to families, so that we weren't doing anything that would inadvertently increase anxiety when we were trying to give tools for people to be proactive and prepared. And that's been important. And again, just to emphasize that this is Know Your Rights in all contexts. It focuses on immigration, but it's important for students and families to understand and know their rights in all contexts when they're interacting with law enforcement. So those are the pieces that I want to emphasize from a legal perspective, and turn it back over to Chief Highcover to take us to the next place.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us here today. I'm going to give more of the technical presentation on the data. I will offer to my 2 colleagues, as I explain the data to the room, that they are welcome to jump in at any time if they want to add additional context to the data. First off, I want to make sure we're very clear that, as Chief Sivan said, we do not track immigration status. And so when asked for data around our students, we are using multilingual learners as the data point. It is definitely not a proxy for students who might be impacted alone by immigration enforcement, but it is the best data we have given that we're not tracking immigration status. We also have other multilingual students who are non-Hispanic or who are with us that are not in that group. This map reflects our multilingual students across the city. While there are certainly areas with larger concentrations of multilingual students, it is important to note that it reflects the presence of multilingual students across our entire city. 91% of our schools have at least one multilingual student enrolled. Percentage of students who are up for multilingual slightly decreased from last year from 14.7% down to 14.4%. We were asked to share data on our annual family survey related to our multilingual families. I want to be clear on this slide. You are looking at the total composite of all 10 questions on our family survey and our ratings for that. Our multilingual learner families are equally positive or more positive on survey topics than families of non-multilingual students, and they have more favorable ratings across the 10 different topics covered by the family survey. This slide shows the composite score that looks at all 10 topics. We believe this is a result of the relationships and trust that our schools and staff have built with multilingual students and their families. As you can see, non-multilingual families in 2026, 82% has a high composite score. Our multilingual families are sitting at 85%, and the trend is that it has grown every year for both groups of people throughout time. For our individual questions, survey results, that first question, you might think it's overall satisfaction. Again, the first one was a composite of satisfaction. The first question on this one looks at satisfaction at your individual child's school. There's why the data point might be different. I want to make sure we're clear on that. And you see in the dark blue, multilingual students, families versus non. In every single category, our multilingual student families seem to be more satisfied than our non-multilingual students. And I think that again, speaks to the support and work intentionality that we are doing in our schools to make sure that our families are engaged and connected. Every spring, for context, the district does issue our annual family survey. We had 12,222 families participate this year, with a total of 1,348 multilingual learner families who participated. In every school category, the response from families of multilingual learners was more positive or equally positive when compared to responses of non-multilingual learners. In the area of overall satisfaction, multilingual learners' families were 10 percentage points more favorable than families of non. And our response rate has been representative of district, including this spring. 11 to 12% of our total survey population in each of the last 4 administrations have come from multilingual families. So for multilingual learner enrollment, I want to be clear that there's an assumption that the enrollment has declined as a district, and it has by about 300 students after years of consistent growth. In the last 10 years, our multilingual population has nearly tripled. We have a small decrease, about 3% in this last year of 300 students enrollment. Our decreases in newcomers or new to the country, we have seen a significant drop in new enrollments. So less about the drop in enrollment, but significant drop in new enrollments to the district. Younger students, particularly pre-K and K, continue to enroll though at the same rate as before. We have not finalized our enrollment accounts for 25-26 school year until after September, and we're happy to come back and share those at another time. For our multilingual student learner withdrawals, the withdrawal data shows we are losing students at roughly the same rate as prior years. The decline is a result of having fewer new enrollments. Multilingual students consistently had higher withdrawal rates compared to all students from SY 22, 23, and then 24. We have reviewed initial data for 25, 26, and that is still incomplete. Again, we'll be happy to bring that data back at another time. For our attendance rates for our multilingual learners, multilingual attendance rate has increased consistently, higher than the district average for the past several years. For the school year 25-26, the multilingual attendance rate is 2 percentage points higher than the district average for all students. Furthermore, multilingual attendance rate increased 90.3% with a 2.2% increase versus last year. We believe this is a testament to the supportive and trusting relationships and environments that schools have created with families and students. For this slide, again, this data goes through 24-25. Data was submitted on our attendance final to MSDE on 7/17. So while the previous slide shows you the breakdown district overall, this slide shows you breakdown by grade level, pre-K to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12. We are working through this data. We do have it available. We just weren't able to pull it together for this presentation, but we can provide that at another time for the 25-26 school year because we just submitted that data to MSDE. But I want to make sure we are clear that multilingual learner attendance rates are higher in pre-K and grade through grade 8 and lower in high school. From 23 to 24 to 24-25, multilingual attendance rates have improved greater than the attendance rates for non-multilingual students from middle and high schools. For grades 6 through 8, the increase was about 3.5% for multilingual learners versus 2.1% for non-multilingual learners. For grades 9 through 12, the increase was 1.8 points for multilinguals versus 1.6 for non. This again is a testament to our relationships with our kids and creating welcoming environments in our schools. Our students are attending, our multilingual students are attending school though at higher rates, and schools with high populations of multilinguals have seen continued academic growth. Oh, and I want to be one clear about, I'll say it later. Chronic absenteeism. The chronic absentee rate for multilingual students has decreased over the past several years, as it has for all of our students. Post-pandemic, we were looking at 54% for all students and 47% for multilinguals. Now we're looking at a chronic absenteeism rate for the district of 41.7%, and our multilingual learners have a chronic absenteeism rate of 35.1%. So we do have seen a decrease overall in chronic absenteeism, and I think that is partly due to the district's comprehensive approach to making sure that kids are getting to school on time, ready to learn every single day. For this slide again, this data goes through 24-25. We just submitted that data on 7/17 to MSDE, and we can provide an updated data to this slide later. But the chronic absenteeism of multilingual students by population of grade, pre-K to 5, 6 to 8, and 9 to 12, is still decreasing. The chronic absenteeism rate for multilingual students dropped 8.3 percentage rates. It's our largest decrease of any group. Our high school multilingual students dropped 2.8 percentage points. And again, we'll provide the additional data for 25-26. This is my last slide before I bring forward our other guests, but I just wanted to give a quick highlight on our MCAP results. It's our annual state assessment for multilingual learners. Our current MCAP results for 25-26 are embargoed by the state. We are not allowed to release those publicly until the state does at the end of July. We did give you the data here for our multilingual performance on state assessments for math and ELA. They have improved overall in both categories from 24-25. We hope to see the same growth for 25-26. We can share more details about our MCAP growth, et cetera. I also just want to note that exited students who are formerly multilingual learners, are not included in this data set. This is only a data set of students who are currently identified as multilingual learners. I would now like to introduce Mary Anchenes, principal of John Ruhr Elementary Middle School, and Coral Beth Garcia, principal of Lakeland Elementary Middle School, to share their perspective on the district's efforts to support all of our students.
Thank you so much. Esteemed members of the City Council, thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and testify. My name is Mary Anchenes. I am the principal at John Ruhr Elementary Middle School. I'm here representing city schools and the members of my school community. Each day, I have the pleasure of walking through the doors and leading my school community, a place that is really near and dear to me. I've worked in the community for almost 20 years now, and I'm very passionate about affording the students opportunities to learn and grow and thrive. Our mission at our school clearly states that our goal is to support students to become college and career ready with dignity. In recent months, our work has really grown and changed in response to circumstances that are far beyond our control. As the climate of the area has shifted, we've learned to pivot as well as deepen and expand partnerships with outside agencies. Personally, I strive to create a bubble of sorts, a place where children can come and explore their interests and develop passions and kind of block out everything that's happening outside of the doors. So we've worked to develop really robust partnerships with local organizations that increase the capacity for us to meet the student and family needs. The demand for support is high from the staff as well as the students and our families. And as such, we have had excellent opportunities to create and cultivate relationships both inside of city schools with many of the folks that are here, as well as within Baltimore City government agencies. So our school community really remains very focused on creating a caring and compassionate environment where students are achieving high expectations and high academic standards. But we are seriously committed to mitigating any impact that all the events of outside our control don't affect our young people. So we look to continue to work not only as an academic institution, but also as a community hub here just to support families and students. Thank you.
Oh, so there we go. Sorry, first time here.
It wasn't you.
Hi, my name is Coral Beth Garcia, and I am the proud principal at Lakeland Elementary Middle School in South Baltimore. I appreciate and thank you for the opportunity to share what it means to be a school leader in 2026. The responsibility is heavy, but the joy of serving children and celebrating their successes is what makes the work deeply rewarding. Every day I have the privilege of working alongside incredible scholars and resilient families who share one common dream, that their children have every opportunity to succeed, whether through college, a career, or a skilled trade. No matter what's happening beyond our school walls, we remain committed to educating the whole child. Learning happens when children feel safe, seen, and valued. Trust is built through honesty, consistency, and true partnerships with families. It means bringing people together and connecting families with resources. Standby guardianship workshops, food distributions, know your rights. Anything that a parent or a community member needs, we try to remove those barriers so that every child in my building has the opportunity to learn and grow. So this past year, many of our scholars carried more than just backpacks. They carried fear and uncertainty. Yet they continue to walk through my doors each morning eager to learn. And our educators, my rock stars, show up every single day with compassion, grace, and an unwavering commitment, even while navigating their own personal challenges with everything that's going on in the world right now. Together, for 7 hours a day, we shut out the noise beyond our school walls so that children focus on what matters most, learning, growing, and simply being children. As educators, we teach reading, writing, mathematics, but our responsibility extends far beyond those academics. We nurture confidence, we build meaningful relationships, and we remind every child that they belong. Their uniqueness is their superpower. Their ability to come to the table and share their culture with us is what we are looking for in our building. We intentionally hire educators who not only possess strong instructional skills, but also lead with empathy and believe wholeheartedly in the limitless potential of every child. Despite the challenges, our families continue to inspire us with their resilience and unwavering belief that education is the pathway to a brighter future. Our families trust us not only with their child's education, but also to be the hub of the community, a safe gathering space where they're welcomed and supported. Our mission is for our scholars to leave Baltimore, explore the world, and then come back to strengthen and serve the very community that helped to raise them. When children feel safe, they learn. When families feel welcomed, they engage. And when schools, families, and communities work together with compassion, every child has the opportunity not just to succeed, to be whatever it is that they dream to be. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
I'll just say thank you, not only city schools, but also thank you for our school leaders as well and the teachers that are in the room. You do such important work. I did have one brief question I think that you could probably answer between city schools and our school leaders. I'm happy that you talked about some of the training you do and how it gets updated, because we recognize that this is a very dynamic and fluid environment, and so we have to be nimble in that work. But in terms of the protocols that were mentioned, are those more so suggestions and guidance, or is it directives such as, if this happens, thou shalt do X, Y, and Z? Just trying to get a little more clarity on how that works.
They're very clearly directives, and they're directives in terms of not just what would happen if enforcement happened on school grounds, which we hope it will not, but also in terms of how to support families. We had to be clear and remind if somebody doesn't, for instance, have a identification when they come for a school visit, a parent-teacher conference, that doesn't mean that they should be blocked at the door, right? Obviously, we want to work with safety, but if it's a family known to the school, we want to make sure we work with that family. And so that's not guidance, that's not suggestion, that's mandated in terms of what we have. And I think we also are very clear that and I think emphasizing what our principals say, that city schools does not believe that schools should be places where law enforcement of any sort, including immigration enforcement, should be happening on school grounds, because it's so important that families should be able to bring their children to school confident that they will be welcomed into a safe and supportive environment. You heard that benefit, the blocking out, and that is really what we've done everything we're doing in service of.
No, thank you for clarifying that. Before we go to any additional presentations, are any additional questions that folks have that are burning? Councilman Ramos.
Mr. Chair, I have a lot of questions, but I think if we want to hear all the presentations.
That's right. Okay, so does anybody have any burning questions? If not, we'll go on.
Because
Councilmember Park, Vice Chair Parker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just an announcement. The chair and I announced the translation services at the beginning of the hearing. They're not fully in place. The simultaneous translator is not yet here. I understand we'll be here within the hour. Yeah, about an hour. So that is not currently in place, but will be, especially by the time we get to testimony from the broader public. So just a note about that. Solo un aviso que la interpretación simultánea, este intérprete no está aquí ahora, pero está llegando. Entonces, después de como 45 o 50 más minutos, vamos a tener este apoyo también. Lo siento por la falta en ese momento.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parker. Okay, so now we'll go to the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success.
Thank you, City Council and Chair Bullock, for inviting us to speak on this all-important matter. I'm Christina Gilchrist, Director of Communications and Engagement for the Mayor's Office of Children and Family Success. MOCFS is committed to providing services to all families across the city through wraparound supports such as case management, assistance programs, and referrals to partner services. To ensure greater access to programs, residents who are unable or prefer not to come to one of our 5 CAP Center locations can apply for the OHEP and Water for All programs online or via telephone. Case management clients may also meet with their case managers virtually or via telephone if that is their preferred mode of communication. As you heard during our budget hearing, all spaces in the CAP centers are marked as either public or private, and all client information is collected and stored confidentially in accordance with grant requirements and applicable city procedures. All of our city center managers have been trained in the city law department's guidelines, how to respond if federal immigration enforcement comes to a city facility, and we will continue to adhere to all protocols as issued. Our Head Start leadership and directors have also received training, and all Baltimore City Head Starts have identified public and private spaces as well. Regarding our work with students, MOCFS also directly supports the well-being of students through the Safe Passage Program, the Mayor's Back to School Rally, interagency coordinated response to youth violence in Baltimore City, and various community engagement activities with Baltimore City Public Schools. We will continue to collaborate closely with MEMA and Baltimore City Schools to support immigrant students and families across Baltimore City.
Thank you very much. All right, moving right along, Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, members of the City Council. I am Catalina Rodriguez Lima, and I'm the Director of the Baltimore City Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, known as MEMA. I have a brief presentation for you all. While our office does not work with students, as you know, we work closely with the families impacted by detention. So I wanted to share some information with you all today based on detention numbers so far in the city of Baltimore. I also wanted to provide a brief reminder and overview about Safe City Baltimore and the services that we provide. I wanted to hone in on Tier 3, which is the tier designed to support those who have been arrested by ICE and the families that were left behind. And finally, I wanted to talk about some new resources thanks to budget increases. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership in getting MEMA's budget increase over the last fiscal year. So moving on to information regarding ICE arrests over time. Before I delve into this information, I want to make 2 points. This information is collected by a nonprofit organization called Deportation Data Project, which gathers public information from the Department of Homeland Security, but also FOIA information. So keep that in the back of your heads. The second one is that the data set does differentiate between jurisdictions, including Baltimore City and Baltimore County, which is unusual. But that assumes that the data based on the city of Baltimore, that the agent that collected that information and entered that information knows that, that there's a difference between the city and the county. So keep that in mind as well. So as you can see, arrests rose sharply starting in May of 2025 and remain elevated through the end of the calendar year in 2025, with the highest peak in January of 2026. Since September of 2025, which is when Safe City Baltimore launched our program to support families, there have been a total of 649 arrests. And the last piece that I wanted to highlight from this graph is that you see a sharp decline during the month of March in 2026. We can speculate that that is tied to leadership changes at Homeland Security with the removal of Secretary Noem. And something else happened during that month where our partners at Amica were successful on a lawsuit based on the conditions at the Baltimore holding room here at the Hopkins Plaza. And so a judge required that they could not hold more than 50 people for 12 hours. So moving on to Safe City Baltimore, a brief reminder that this project provides 3 tiers of services. The first being community education, family planning. I want to publicly thank the school system for their partnership on this. Our most successful Know Your Rights sessions have been in partnership with the schools, where families get information about what to do if ICE comes to their home, their job, in public. They also get Know Your Rights bags, information about our program, who to call if they're detained, who to call if they're not detained. The second tier of services, we partner with the American Bar Association to create a hotline, citywide hotline for non-detained individuals. And this is for folks who have not been detained but need an immigration attorney as a way to stop the pipeline of detention and deportation. And then tier 3, which is the tier where I will focus my presentation on, is designed for those who have been arrested, right, after the fact. We have partnered with CASA and Amica to provide a service for those who have been detained, but also the families who were left behind and are impacted by detention. And so the way it works is people can call CASA's statewide hotline at a point where a city resident has been identified. That call is routed to the Baltimore local office. A case manager responds within 48 hours. It's typically 24 hours. Gathers information from the family to determine if detention actually happened. If they do identify that the person was arrested by ICE, that the family member was arrested by ICE, a warm referral takes place to Amica. In the meantime, CASA remains with the family to provide case management support and financial assistance for a period of 3 months. I wanted to share some numbers with you based on our case management support since September of 2025. that can shed some light on what we're seeing on the ground. Well, CASA has screened a total of 742 calls across the city. I don't think the zip codes that you see on the map are surprising to you all, but pretty much citywide. From those calls, 143 individuals have been identified as detained by ICE and have been referred to our partners at AMICA. 78 households have received case management support, and the difference between the number of individuals detained versus the number of households is because you may have multiple individuals arrested in one household. And the one thing that I wanted to point out, the referral mechanism that we have established in the city of Baltimore, which is new, has proven to be effective. 90% of the cases reaching AMICA actually come from the partnership, with CASA being the point of entry for people who need assistance. Some other findings from our case management caseload, 95% of those receiving case management are women, and this is consistent with what we've seen. Oftentimes, the person arrested is the head of household. The average size of the families are 4. Languages encountered are Spanish and French. And something that we like to point out in our programs is the years of residency. As you can see, 61% of individuals receiving case management have lived in the city of Baltimore for more than 5 years, and so they have deep roots in our city as well. Moving on to new resources, you heard me speak during our budget hearing that we have been actively fundraising. We've raised additional dollars, and starting next month, we're gonna be increasing support for case management and financial assistance and doubling that support to be able to see more families. And with the budget increase, something that we're doing actually this week is we're gonna be engaging in onboarding BEAM, which is an organization that will be supporting the families impacted by detention with mental health supports, whether it is from direct services to group therapy to coordination of services. And I wanted to close by reminding folks how to support immigrants impacted by detention or those who are arrested. Please encourage people to call CASA's hotline. That is the best way to get them assistance as soon as possible. Someone will actually show up to their house to determine the situation. Also encouraging families to fill out the standby guardianship. Our Know Your Rights sessions include a process on why it's important to do that. We've also partnered with MVLS to have pro bono attorneys that help families fill out those forms. And then finally, we have an active program called the Baltimore Immigrant Community Fund where we raise dollars. Those dollars are going specifically to those families impacted by detention. And with that, thank you and happy to answer any questions.
So we truly thank you for doing so much of the heavy lifting on this very, crisis-oriented situation. Again, the partnerships that you've been able to cultivate. So again, it's very much appreciated, and thank you for that work. It also goes to show how the resources we provided are very well spent. So again, thank you for that work you're doing. Next, we'll go to the Department of Health.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Bullock and members of the committee. My name is Mary Beth Haller, and I serve as Deputy Commissioner for Youth Wellness and Community Health in the Baltimore City Health Department. This issue is incredibly important to us as an agency. As a public health professional, I'm also personally very concerned about the impact of increased immigration enforcement on the city's young people. Thank you, Council Members Parker and Ramos, for bringing this, for calling this hearing and bringing attention to how changes in immigration policy and enforcement may be impacting our students. BCHD works in community across the city, including in city schools, at our clinics, in senior centers, through street outreach, through home visiting programs, and more. We translate many of our materials into Spanish, French, Arabic, Chinese, and Korean, and our staff use the language line when needed. It's critical that language access not be a barrier to residents obtaining our services. Turning our focus to the impact of increased immigration enforcement on city school students, BCHD has not observed any decreases in visits to our to our health suites or our school-based health centers over the last school year. If we had seen a decrease, it would be difficult to attribute it to a single factor directly related to federal immigration enforcement or to quantify the extent of the impact. But here's what we do know. We know that Baltimore City's children experience adverse childhood experiences at a high rate due to many factors, and the negative environmental, social, and economic conditions that determine poor health outcomes weigh heavily in our city. When we then consider the effect of constant anxiety and terror in anticipation of being deported or having one's family detained or deported, the traumatic effect of that is unquestionable. We are aware of some impacts on city school students and their families through the programs and services we provide outside of schools. BCHD operates 2 brick-and-mortar clinics. Clinic staff have shared that several patients have expressed concerns related to immigration enforcement. Another area we may be seeing an impact is with programs that involve visits to residents' homes. Allowing a government entity into one's home requires a great deal of trust, and some residents are understandably cautious. For example, our community asthma program and our childhood lead poisoning prevention program staff have been finding that immigrant families have been more reluctant to allow access to their homes for assessment of lead and asthma triggers. Staff have worked to encourage these families to participate in these important programs. We share materials in Spanish and use Language Line, and our staff in the lead and asthma programs both have staff that speak Spanish. This is critical for ensuring that families understand the purpose of our visits. I would like to close by saying that BCHD recognizes the importance of a safe and welcoming environment where all children can thrive. BCHD will continue to provide service to constituents where they are, whether it's in community, in our clinics, or in our schools. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And as we mentioned, again, this covers so many of our parts of our society, and health is obviously a big part of that. I do want to provide an opportunity for members of the committee who have any questions for our agencies before we proceed. Are there any questions that folks may have? Councilman Ramos.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Apologies. I know we have 2 other or 3 other members of the public, or 4, that we were going to give more time for, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to ask some questions. And again, thank you, Mr. Chair, for having this hearing. I have several questions for the school system and some for the for MOCFS. First of all, I want to thank the school system for this is the first time that we're seeing publicly your very forthright commitment and protocols and everything that you've had, and I think that's a good sign, because I think there was some hesitancy over the last year, to not say too much, but it's really important to be brave as leaders about what we're doing. So I very much appreciate that that has changed. One of my questions is about, we were not able to get community schools coordinators here for several reasons, and I'll go into that later, but I had a specific question about what are the supports that, and the things that we're being able to share with community schools coordinators, who are, a lot of times it's our school leaders, but it's also, I'm a big fan of the community schools coordinators. Huge fan. I think that is a program that is now spreading across the nation because of what we've been doing, and the community schools coordinators serve a very important role, that the educators can focus on educating and still caring for our young people. But if somebody needs additional support, that community schools coordinator can help with bringing in partnerships, doing, in my schools, several of my community schools coordinators bring in, food pantries and help with uniforms, and really are also becoming those links really to all of the different resources that are available. So I'm a humongous fan of the community schools coordinators. I also know that a lot of them are wondering, and trying their best to support our immigrant families. And I want to just make sure that they're getting support, right? But also the information about what support is out there for the families. And also the backing of the school system to make those partnerships that are really needed to be able to support those young people and their families. So can you talk a little bit about what the supports are and the information and how all of the community schools coordinators, not just the ones that are employed by city schools, but all of them employed by the Y. I have the Y in my district. Also the Child First and any of our other entities, those community school coordinators have been extremely important. And so I want to make sure that they are supplied with everything that they need, but are also getting the support that they need.
Happy to take that question, as the community school strategy sits in my department. I too might even be a bigger fan than you of the community school strategy, because I have worked on this for the past 25 years of my career.
Yes.
Community schools is an integral part in every day of every single one of our schools has a community school coordinator. We're very clear about that. We're very fortunate to have that. And when you talked about training and support, we provide training across the board. So one, we train lead agencies on all of our protocols so they were aware, not only the coordinator, but the lead agency sponsors themselves. But two, all of our coordinators come together quarterly and they get comprehensive training with the district. So we have a comprehensive approach. I wanna make sure everybody understands that every single school needs to create a needs assessment of that school's unique needs. A community school is not a one-size-fits-all strategy. It is a curtailed strategy for each school based on the identified needs of that school community. Last year, we completed 127 new needs assessment developments, which are now resulting in the creation of implementation plans for every single school. I also want to run as my colleague across the way with Mima. We have worked with them really directly on what resources are in the community and how we can provide those referrals to our coordinators. I will honestly say the need is tremendous, and sometimes our coordinators can be overwhelmed, right? We have one coordinator for every school. Let me be very clear. Mervo has 1,600 kids, and they have one coordinator.
Who is a rock star, by the way.
He's a rock star.
He's a rock star.
Wolf Street has 230 kids, and they have one coordinator. So I'm gonna be very honest about the tax and the toll we put on our coordinators, right? So our work group internally, Holly Gonzalez, who I know is watching because she texted me, has done an amazing job she does the training and support for our coordinators and cultivation of those resources for those coordinators so they have a litany of things. And when they don't have what they need, they can also call us to help them work through what it is they need. I do want to offer the principals an opportunity to speak from their perspective about our coordinators, but I just want to tell you, we have fed into them, we continue to build, and they need to identify if we aren't giving them enough or they need more. But I will also offer that when the foundation community came to me and said, how can we support city schools? I said, the best thing you can do is support our public partners in the community, nonprofits, et cetera, giving them the support so that we can refer our families to them, right? We are in the business of school, and we know that sometimes school means a whole lot of other things, but at the end of the day, we need partners in the community we can refer our families to, and so we've encouraged, and I know our foundation partners have put together a work group to determine how they can best support our neighborhood partners, our community partners who are working on the ground every day to help our families.
Yeah, I was one of several electeds that you see before you that went to bat for the community schools when they were mysteriously missing from the state budget, but are no longer. So I appreciate that. I want to be very, very specific. I want to make sure that our community schools coordinators, you're talking about, quarterly training and all of that. But I want to make sure that they are feeling supported and heard. And we're not able to get some of them here that we were interested in hearing from today because they don't necessarily, I don't know if this is true all the way around, but it seems sometimes that the system is saying, don't speak because we want to control the message. And I want our coordinators and I want our staffs and I want our teachers and I want our educators to feel like they should be able to say, look, we need this, that, the other. And if they can't do that, and share their stories and share what they are experiencing with their students and with their families every day, then that is a real problem. I think that it's a problem that some people felt that the school system was going to come down hard on them and did not want to come today. And that's just not the community schools coordinators. We have educators and others. And I think that that's, again, I want to paint a picture of we're trying to support our residents and give you all the tools that you need, but I absolutely want to make sure that our staff that are on the ground working with students every single day can come to us, can come to the public, can come to say what exactly the needs are so that we can get everything that they need for them.
I just want to clarify that there is one spokesperson for the city school system, and that is Dr. Jermaine Dawson, right? And he has designees who support his delivery of public messages. And so he has designated that Dr. Durant, Chief Sivan, and myself, who lead the work at the district level, speak on behalf to City Council. That does not prevent individual coordinators to speak to you all directly about their needs in their communities, because we actually implore them to connect with neighborhood associations, their local elected officials, and whatever inside their community. But to be at a public space speaking on behalf of the district is not okay. However, they are citizens of this country and they have a right for free speech. And what that means, we've been giving them direction, and if they need clarity, I'm happy to provide it for them. They can speak as a citizen of this city and sharing their concerns without identifying the school community that they're in, because we also want to avoid anecdotal stories, as we continue to hear stories of things that happen and we investigate into the story of there were people staging on a parking lot. We investigated. Actually, it was BPD that was there and not ICE, right? So we want to be careful and thoughtful about how we're framing things and having the information clear, but that doesn't prevent them from partnership in the neighborhood with their council members, with the neighborhood associations, of doing the work. It's just from a public system standpoint of speaking about what the district is doing. Dr. Dawson implored the three of us to come and share that message.
And thank you for lifting up the issue of community school coordinators, so important, and thank you for the answer. I know Vice Chair Parker has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody, for presenting from our agencies and partners here. I look forward to our panel here in a moment. I heard it, and this is true in the conversation ahead of time, and I appreciate that. And also here, we're waiting on some more data to come out from this last school year, and I really appreciate the willingness of city schools not only to engage with us today, but also to be willing to come back and share with us not only the data, but what you make of the data, which is even more important, to have your expertise in analyzing it. I'm curious, as you think about that and look towards not only data that currently isn't before us, but maybe that's not together, the impact of this, I really appreciated Mary Beth Haller's description of the way that, of the ripple effect of immigration enforcement and traumatic events on families, communities, school communities, classrooms, and all the rest. I see it with my own children who come home scared and worried when their classmates weren't in school that day because they don't know why, right? It was a dentist appointment, but they know it could have been something else, right? In the impact of teachers who text me or call me after something's happened to one of their students in their classroom and they're completely torn up and devastated, of course. In terms of data that can help us unpack that a little bit, I'm curious, what data sets do you all look at or available to you around social emotional health of students? I mean, and again, that's hard to capture, but the next time you come back, or what are some of those key things that you use, whether it's principals in your own schools to track that, whether it's a district overall, what are some things that might give some clues as to the social emotional state and well-being of our students? And then similar with parent engagement, the surveys are great. I really appreciate the surveys. But in terms of, are we capturing the number of parents who show up for A, B, and C, and how that's changed? But I'm curious. Partly you'll answer that by the next time you come back, you'll bring some of this data. But just for us today, what are some of those data points that you use to track student social and emotional well-being? And also parental or family engagement.
I'm happy to speak on the parent and family engagement. I'll let Dr. Durant do the social emotional piece. We do track by school services provided because we want to make sure we have an understanding of what the needs are at the school and how they're being served. So we do have individual school support outline. I can't say which parent got which thing. I don't track it by who the parent is.
Sure.
But we do know the greater number of resources that are connected to families, and we do unpack that, so we'd be happy to share that at another time, but we do track that information.
Great, thank you.
I think you raise a really good point in terms of our ability to really determine what data points we should be looking at. It's one of the reasons why we're looking forward to coming back, because we want to be able to look at, were there changes in attendance and absenteeism in particular areas, particular schools? How is that impacting what's happening? What do we know about some of the data points that you've asked about in terms of suspension and referrals and how we're capturing that? I'm going to just tell you that for us, in terms of our cross-functional group, a lot of what we know and what we are responding to is really coming to us directly from school leaders. This is what we are experiencing, which some of it is not going to show up in data. So Principal Antoinette and I talked about it, and she was one of the first principals that reached out and said, listen, this is what my teachers are experiencing, to some of the examples that you've given. When young people don't come, or when they don't come because their parents have been detained, or a neighbor was detained, or someone who was a bad actor came impersonating ICE, right? When those things happen, our students are bringing that in the door with them, and so are our families. And one of the things that she said is, we have an employee assistance program, but the employee assistance program in and of itself is insufficient for this need. So what else is out there? And so through her own partnership, she was really calling us to talk about how we could support her with the partnership with her school individually. And I said to the team, this is not what we want to do. We need to have this across offering for all of our schools. And how are we really keeping our finger on the pulse of what people are experiencing? The other thing that I will say, is coming to us from school leaders by way of teachers. I will tell you that I think one of the things, and this goes back to this piece around control, right? And the kinds of experiences that young people will have in the community. And I think to Chief Hyde Hubbard's point, it is around what the ecosystem, so when you hear MEMA and the health department, is what the ecosystem knows. Because if the health department knows something that we don't have a way of having visibility in because they're going to a clinic outside of hours, what do we then do with that information, and how are we partnering with them to make sure that we're being responsive in our protocols and our supports? I think the other thing is us really focusing on what do we need to do for teachers in classrooms, what do we need to do for leaders in buildings to make sure they have what they need, so that whatever a young person is coming into the building with, whether it is something to do with immigration, ICE enforcement, or if it is something else that is happening in our community, what do we do when they enter our space? And part of that is holding our teachers whole, and the other part of that is, here's how we're supporting you. And it's probably an unsatisfying answer, but so much of what we know and what we are able to respond to is what comes to us directly from our school leaders. And we have, certainly since the pandemic, and that's why we have all of the survey data, but I want to say we've become a lot more skilled in listening to what our people are saying to us, and also telling them, this is what we heard you say, is this right? Tell us what you need, and this is how we're going to respond. And if it's something that is outside of the scope of what we can respond to our authority, here's who we're going to connect you with.
Great. My other question was very specific. When we talk about protocols, and you mentioned there's all kinds of, and so did the health department, there's all kinds of traumatic events that our young people go through that have nothing to do with immigration. I'm familiar, after an act of violence that impacts a member of the school community, or maybe a close family member of somebody in the school community, we often hear reference to the counselors will be available on school site, and A, B, and C. Is one of the protocols that's been developed, I mean, this isn't really a legal question necessarily, but it's one of the protocols that's been developed when a member of an immediate family of one of our students is detained, here are the resources we deploy. I mean, that's laid out that's one of the things we developed and implement on a regular basis.
I don't know if it's as specific as that, because we want for people at the school community to identify what the needs are and then make those referrals. So we don't have that master list. We can take that back to the work, okay. Take that back to our work group, yep. Take it back to our work group and think, we'll take it back to work consideration.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to speak from the principal perspective. We have an abundance of resources, right? And I think depending on how the resources are deployed throughout the city, you might be able to have access to one resource over another resource. And so I think in my building, what it's about collecting all of the resources and having one document. So when a family comes, because the nuances of what each individual family is dealing with looks different. It's not a one size fit all, which is sometimes what trainings look like, right? That is the foundation of, here, if you get stuck in this spot, bare minimum, this is what you do. What falls on leaders in the building, and I think that part of it is this is an up and down. One day, it's quiet, it's the calm before the storm, and then the next day, you hear something. And the question becomes, is what I heard actually factual, right? So when we talk about locus of control, how do I respond to that? And then as leaders, it's about being the calm in that storm. So getting a 5 a.m. phone call from a parent or text message that says, there's white SUVs outside of front of the building, right? How do I respond to that, right? It's about the relationships that we've built with the community to be able to, they text me, right? They trust me enough to know, hey, you tell me that our school space is safe, right? Baltimore City Public Schools says this is what the guidance and the protocols, you're gonna implement it, now let me just notify you about what's going on. That means that before I even step foot anywhere near my community, I know that parents are ruffled that morning, right? So it's about how do I communicate with my staff members, hey, we're gonna take care of it. You know what I mean? Like, how do we get people to understand that it doesn't just, here, do this, right? It's about digging through what resources we have and then matching it to whatever the family specifically needs is what it comes down to.
And I think if I could also add real quickly, I think one of the other things that has been learning for us and what we've tried to be very intentional about is doing with our leaders and not to, right? So we have the guidance, we have the protocols, there is the nuance because we've got to trust that they will be the leaders that they are. And also, we take direction from leaders in terms of here are the protocols and here are the guidance, and in terms of support, because sometimes what we see as support is actually not what school leaders need or want in that moment. And so sometimes a deployment of resources, if you will, is actually not what they want. They're like, y'all stay there, we got this, let us manage our community, because the influx of all of these additional people who don't live here in our community and have the trusted relationships is actually only going to make people more anxious. So I think even in terms of our responsiveness, it is our ability to hold that they are very skilled leaders and have the best interests of their schools and communities.
Thank you both very much. Looking at my colleagues here, you have one more question here. Well, one more question here, and then I want us to hear from our panelists, and then be able to move towards our community, our public engagement. Zach, do you have any, Councilperson Blanchard, do you have any questions at this moment?
I do.
Okay. One specific one. Councilperson Jones. Okay, let's do one specific question here that are for our agencies, and then, but these are weighty subjects, but let's move through them so we can get our panel and move.
Yep.
Moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think this would be for Chief Hubbard. I didn't crunch the numbers yet, but either way, it looks like, and you might have mentioned, I apologize if I overlooked it, back on the slide about enrollment numbers.
What number is the slide, please?
This is 11, slide number 11. City Schools Multilingual Learner Enrollment. It looks like 9th through 12th, multilingual learners made up over two-thirds of the drop in enrollment, but only make up like 20% of the multilingual learners in city schools. And I apologize if you hit on this, but what's what do we think is the mechanism for the drop spiking in high school?
So that's across the board for city schools, right? So even though this is showing a drop for multilingual learners, that's where you see the drop in enrollment at that age level. But it's consistent amongst the data across the board.
Sorry, are you saying that in 2026, there was a drop compared to 2025?
I don't have no. What I'm offering is there was a drop in enrollment in general for the district, right? And when we say a drop in newcomers coming to the country, that's where we're seeing the biggest drop at high school is our older students coming in as new enrollees, right? What we saw is a continued maintain the level of pre-KK enrollment for students, but what we're not seeing is the influx of newcomer students at that high school
okay.
level.
So, got it. It's not, because the withdrawal slide didn't print through fully. So it's fewer newcomers on the high school level between 25 and 26.
That's
okay,
right.
got it. All right, thank you.
Councilperson Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair. So this question kind of go towards either MEMA or Baltimore City Schools. But I guess when looking at the presentations, I kind of look and see two completely different approaches and presentations to this question. While I understand that MEMA mostly focused on families, but the direct impact is children, and while City Schools focused on children with an indirect impact on families. But just wondering, what does that coordination look like? Because just from the city's approach, we lean so much heavily into MEMA and making sure you all have the resources to help out these communities and families, but we want to make sure that also helps and support our students at the same time. So just wondering, like, what does that collaboration look like? Is there room for collaboration? That way we can make sure as we lean into providing services, that they're also reaching out young folks and students. That's my biggest concern.
Thank you, Councilman. So as I mentioned in my presentation, we work closely with the school system. We actually have a standing meeting every 2 weeks where we talk about any changes in services. The school system actively supports with logistics of Know Your Rights sessions across regions, given our limited capacity. More recently, we've been providing Know Your Rights bags to multiple schools based on request, even though presentations haven't taken place, with the notion that that bag has a wealth of information for families that they serve. Along with that, we are in close communication whenever there is rumors of ICE enforcement or actual cases. We try to stay in touch with the folks in that work group that we work closely with Tina. The last piece that I will say, in situations like the one that we had a couple weeks ago, our relationships were helpful because we had a relationship not only with the school, we had a relationship with the community school coordinator. It's been really helpful for them to help us navigate the school system, given that we don't have the expertise and knowledge, but also to reemphasize this notion that there are 2 phone numbers, that there are 3 tiers of services to weed out the confusion of who do I call, what should I do. Information is power. And so just very grateful for their support in making sure that information is disseminated as wide as possible.
And I just want to echo Catalina's sentiments exactly. The one thing I would only add is that even when there is an emergency call in the evening or whatever, we're able to call them and help them to help us triage situations, and on top of the regular connection and meetings and alignment that we have between the 2 entities.
Thank you all
Thanks for
very much.
uplifting that. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilperson Jones. Councilor Ramos, final question here, and then we'll allow our city schools folks to step aside and have our panel come forward.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. On slide 6, where it talks about the policy and regulation revisions, I very much appreciated the links directly to the policy. That was super helpful. And I would encourage the public, you can get those on our website and you can see, they're on your website also, so they're very public. It says here on page 6 of the slides that the board policy clarified recently that all areas of school property are not open to the public during the school day or during the school-sponsored activities. And then in the policy, when you click on the link and it talks about the immigration protocols, which are actually not just for immigration, but for all law enforcement, which I think that makes sense. Those protocols are very much about if they knock on the door of the building, as opposed to if they are on school grounds. So what are the protocols for what the school leaders or school police are supposed to do when law enforcement, in this case immigration enforcement, but I guess all law enforcement, are on school grounds? Because again, their definition here is about all of the grounds and all of the activities and the sports areas and all of that. But your protocols are based on if they knock on the door of the building.
Thanks for the opportunity to clarify there, and always happy to take feedback if not clear, but we've been clear in our training, in our guidance, in our one-pager that it's any law enforcement on school property anywhere, if out at recess, if in the front of the building, staff are to implement these protocols to say that that enforcement's not authorized without clearing it with the Office of General Counsel and getting school police involved if they did, and those protocols in numerous non-immigration situations have been invoked and have worked, and those are what our school staff understand is the follow-up.
Okay, that's not how I read that, so happy to get another document from you that would state that clearly. I could have also missed it. It's entirely possible. But you know, I wanted to be clear, though, to the public also that, you know, school grounds means school grounds, and anything associated with the school. You know, obviously we've had some instances where enforcement is outside of the school, is one instance that we know of where they were on school grounds. You know, we want to make sure that everybody understands that the school system should be taking action when there are those types of situations.
Yes, and we do.
Okay. And related to that, I wanted to ask MOCFS. I know Dr. Brooks is not here, and so you may have to get back to us. The Safe Passage program, both before and after school, I have it in my district at Mervo, very successful, has been really an amazing, amazing program. I would ask that the Safe Passage program be expanded to the schools that we think we're gonna see some more enforcement action. Because having that positive presence, they're not armed, they're not in uniform, but they do have a presence with the vest or whatever. They have a relationship with the students and the staff, as well as the families, and can be on the lookout, if you will. And that's what they're supposed to be doing. They're at Mervo. I have them before and after school. Their footprint is actually even beyond the campus to be able to make sure that our friends are safe. And so I know that's going to take additional resources, but I do think that's where we are now. We need to make sure that that program is going to be in the areas where we think there's going to be, the whole point of the Safe Passage program was to be able to keep kids safe. And it was at a time when we were seeing violence at Mervo outside or just inside the school. And so I'm very appreciative of the fact that this program actually is really successful. And therefore I want it expanded to the areas that I think that we're gonna have the most threats to our students. So I hope that I can work with the school system and with MOCFS and with MONSE, because MONSE is very much a part of that program, to be able to do that. Because even though we think that it'll be hard to expand it to all schools, but we can definitely predict where I think that program is going to be needed in the short term. So I hope that we can do that.
Yes, and thank you for that. And one of the things that we also have implemented with our Safe Passage community workers, we've implemented some of the training that we've had with the Head Start program, with the CAP Center staff, about what to do, making sure that they have the Know Your Rights cards and things like that. So we're happy to, Dr. Brooks is working very hard to try to find resources to be able to expand that program. But we are making sure that our Safe Passage community-based organizations are aware and know what to do in case they encounter ICE agents.
Well, my guys at Mervo are trained. That yes, we made sure of.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Ramos. Councilperson Jones had a question specific to BCPS, so I wanted to make sure, Baltimore City Schools, I'm sorry.
Yep, just one last question. Just reminded that I remember BTU had received concerns before previously regarding retaliation, I guess, when they felt like they speaking up in support of families, when it came in multiple meetings in regards to like language access. I guess when they feel like they're speaking up in support of the members, oftentimes I guess they felt as though the issues with language access was denied. Just wondering if you were aware of any of these concerns, and I guess moving forward, is there a way we can kind of rebuild trust, and how do you see moving forward when some people have lifted up that concern?
Yeah, I actually appreciate you elevating language access, because we didn't say that today. We've done a tremendous amount of work in that arena. 2 years ago, we did a full analysis of the district's business practices around language access, not just the communication, but do you get your child's report card in the home language? Can you come to a school and engage and be in parent conferences and that kind of thing? From there, we had concerns that were elevated through BTU through our school board meetings. We have created a steering committee for business practices and language access at the district, and BTU has a seat at that table on a regular basis as we design and redesign or fix or improve our systems where we identify where the needs need to occur and make those changes in real time. And it's going to be a slow growth process, right? We're going to do this over a 3-year time period because we can't change everything overnight, but we are being very intentional about how all of our families can contribute robustly with city schools, especially our multilingual families, through the intentional work of this work group that's inclusive of community partners, teachers, principals, union representatives, and district office employees to make sure we are really addressing and figuring out what we need to improve around language access for our district.
No, I appreciate you, like you said, taking in those concerns and making those adjustments, because one thing I'm aware of, the BTU, those folks, the teachers, they are ones on the front line and can say exactly what some of the, challenges are and, our students are experiencing. So I appreciate you taking in that input and making that adjustment, and hopefully we can keep those lines of communication open in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councilperson Jones. Thanks to our colleagues at Baltimore City Schools. We look forward to a further conversation. I know our chair will follow up, and I'll follow up with you about when we get that scheduled. Really appreciate all your leadership on a regular basis and your help and support today. Thank you so much. As we bid farewell to them, I want to welcome up our panelists, Ms. Susana Barrios, community advocate, president of Latino Racial Justice Circle, active in Comité Latino and Build, Ms. Karen Dayhoff, senior youth services coordinator of Asili Women Enterprise, Dr. Tanya Caballero, Johns Hopkins, a pediatrician there, and Mr. David Castro, former community school coordinator with Lakeland Elementary Middle School. Please come and join us up front.
It would be amazing if some of the school staff would be able to listen to the rest of the hearing too. No, you're fine. You're totally fine.
Very good. Thank you all so much for joining us here. I gave brief introductions, but as you begin your remarks, feel free to elaborate a little bit more on your role or your backgrounds as you find it helpful for us. Let's begin in the order. Let's continue in the order that I mentioned. So, Ms. Barrios, Ms. Dayhoff, Dr. Caballero, and then Mr. Castro. All right, Susana, please.
Is it on? Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Susana Barrios. I'm Vice President of Latinos United Network for Advocacy, an active member of Comité Latino de Baltimore since 2019. I'm also an active member of Community Work Group for English Language Learners, also known as Community Well, since 2021. Now, we gave this name before they changed the term to Multilingual Learners, and a former president of Latino Racial Justice Circle. Today, I am speaking on behalf of Comité Latino de Baltimore, CAPSI, Luna, and also Community Well. For years, our organizations have been trusted spaces for immigrants' families across Baltimore. People come to us because they know we will listen, respect their privacy, and help them find supports. The families we hear from are parents, grandparents, students, teachers, and neighbors. Offer a clear picture of what children are experiencing every day. What concerns me the most is not only immigration enforcement itself, it's the impact on children. The questions families are heartbreaking. The questions families are asking are heartbreaking. Is it still safe to walk my child to school? Should I attend my child's school event? What happens if I'm not home when my child gets back? Who will take care of my children if something happens to me? Many of these children are US citizens, yet they live with the constant fear of losing a parent. Some children become anxious whenever a parent leaves the house, even for routine errands. Others panic if the parent is late picking them up from school, immediately fearing the worst. No child should have to carry that fear. And it doesn't stay at home. It follows them into the classroom. Children cannot set these worries aside when the school day begins. They sit in the class wondering if their parents will still be there when they return home. Mental health professionals call this anticipatory grief, living with the expectation that something terrible could happen. This emotional burden affects their children that focuses, participate, and learn. Parents are also changing their routines out of fear. In Baltimore City, where many families walk their children to school, some now hesitate to do so. Others avoid school events, conferences, or seeking help because they are fear of drawing attention. When families withdraw, school loses the vital connection with their communities, and teachers are left supporting anxious students while trying to teach. As we discuss attendance, engagement, and achievement, we must remember that behind every statistic is a child and a family. Absences are not always about the lack of value for education. They often reflect fear. Clear guidance for schools responding to immigration enforcement could help. For example, Prince George's County Public Schools has recently adopted a policy outlining procedures, protecting students' information, and reaffirming that every student deserves a safe, welcoming environment. I just learned about this policy that Baltimore City has, which I think is very similar to the one I'm mentioning. However, I don't think that is, I don't know when it was adopted. I don't know when it has trickled down to the teachers, but some of the teachers and community school coordinators have been contacted us for help, for assistance. I don't think that they are aware of this resource. I don't know, I think it's a better communication or distributing this information, not only to the school staff, but also to the parents, so that the parents are aware of what the procedure will look like and what they should expect. While such policies cannot eliminate fear, they can reduce uncertainty and build trust. As someone who answers these calls daily, I can tell you families are not asking for special treatments. They are asking for peace of mind. They want their children to focus on learning, not on whether their families will still be together at the end of the day. Every child deserves to feel safe enough to learn. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barrios. Ms. Dehoff.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to the Council Committee for bringing this very important topic here today. My name is Karen Dehoff. I'm a bilingual social worker and the Senior Youth Services Coordinator at Asylum Women Enterprise. We're a Baltimore-based nonprofit that supports asylum seekers and immigrant trafficking survivors with holistic services. Many of our clients have children in Baltimore City schools or are students in Baltimore City schools themselves. And many of our youth and families are living with obvious ongoing fear related to immigration enforcement and uncertainty around ever-changing immigration policies. A significant portion of the trauma that we're addressing right now has nothing to do with the trauma that the clients experienced in home country or on their journeys here, but the trauma that they're experiencing once they've arrived here in the United States. It's adding layers to the trauma they've already experienced, and the daily recurring trauma is adding complexity to the prior traumas experienced, and it's delaying or in some cases impeding the ability to heal those prior traumas. Youth who have already experienced trauma, immigration enforcement can be deeply triggering. Seeing immigration officers or hearing about arrests reminds them of detention centers that they were in, or family separations they experienced at the border, or just dangers experienced during migration. For many, what they're seeing with these unjustified detainments and arrests, it's reinforcing the false belief that they've done something wrong simply by existing here in our city. Imagine trying to build confidence and heal from trauma while constantly receiving messages that make you feel like you don't belong in the very place where you came for safety. Through AWE's partnership with the HEAL Refugee Health and Asylum Collaborative, as well as our partnership with the Intercultural Counseling Connection, our clients receive individual and group therapy. Our therapists are consistently telling us that they're seeing higher levels of anxiety and depression than ever before. In response, we've incorporated Know Your Rights sessions into our programming so that youth and families can understand what protections they have and how to prepare.
What often happens, though, is that these legal conversations become therapy conversations. Young people are talking about their fears of family separation, worries that a parent might not come home, or the possibility of being deported and leaving behind their U.S. citizen children or younger siblings. Some have even expressed that returning to the country where they are forced to flee feels safer than remaining in the certainty they experience here. And we want to emphasize that this is not normally the case and that this is not safe for them to do, but this is what they feel. And what we're witnessing extends far beyond legal concerns. It's actually changing childhood itself. So many parents are obviously understandably afraid to let their children participate in everyday activities. Young people are spending less time at parks or with friends, and they're missing community events and extracurricular activities that they once enjoyed. Many are isolated at home, spending more time on their phones, playing video games as their primary form of social interaction. They're turning to AI to talk through their feelings because they don't feel safe enough to connect with others. This also affects how they show up in school. We hear about students whose grades are declining because they can't concentrate. Others are missing school because parents are afraid of rumors that immigration officers are nearby, and often these rumors are true. Some youth are trying to cope with the detention of a parent or a family member while attempting to keep up with homework and exams. They're carrying burdens that many of their peers simply do not have to carry. And I want to ask, are our schools equipped to not only identify but carry the burdens of these affected students? Do they know which students' parents are detained and how are they responding to these situations? One thing we've also noticed, though, is that families are becoming much harder to reach. Enrolling families in services has become increasingly difficult because people are understandably hesitant to trust an unfamiliar phone call from an organization that they don't know offering help. At the same time, on a positive note, we've learned something really important. When organizations have already built trusting relationships with immigrant communities, families continue to show up. They may need services delivered differently, but they don't stop needing them. At Asili Women Enterprise, we've adapted. We've increased virtual therapy when families don't feel safe traveling. We've delivered groceries and essential supplies directly to homes. We've arranged more private transportation so participants can safely attend programming. We've adjusted how we communicate and how we provide services because maintaining trust has become just as important as providing the service itself. We also accompany every client to ICE check-ins and ISAP check-ins, as well as every court hearing, so that they feel safe in every setting. The lesson we've learned is that trust is protective. It keeps young people connected to mental health care, education, community, and hope during times of tremendous uncertainty. As city leaders, your decisions influence whether immigrant families feel safe accessing schools, healthcare, community programs, libraries, and other public spaces. The more trusted and acceptable those spaces remain, the more likely young people are to stay engaged rather than to retreat into isolation. These youth are remarkably resilient. Every week we see incredible courage, determination, and hope, but resilience should not be mistaken for the absence of need or the absence of fear. They continue to need safe spaces, trusted adults, trauma-informed services, and communities that communicate clearly that they belong. So I thank you for making the time to listen and for your commitment to understanding the experiences of immigrant youth in our city. We look forward to continuing to collaborate with you all to make sure immigrant youth in Baltimore continue to feel safe and supported. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Dehoff. Dr. Caballero.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Dr. Tanya Caballero. I'm a board-certified pediatrician. I have been for 12 years, primarily serving the East Baltimore community, Latino community. I'm an assistant professor of pediatrics at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. I'm also a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics and a former executive committee member of their Council on Immigrant Child and Family Health. And the views I'm expressing today are my own and don't necessarily reflect those of Johns Hopkins University, the Johns Hopkins Health System, or the American Academy of Pediatrics. Thanks so much for having me. So I'm deeply concerned, as are others, about how children are being impacted by the harmful immigration actions in Baltimore City and around the country, from children who have a parent who's detained, to those living in fear of family separation, and those who are being held in detention themselves. As a pediatrician, I know this will have long-lasting effects on their health and well-being, which is why I'm speaking today. In my work, I've cared for children who have had at least one parent who's been detained. Detaining caregivers and separating them from their children not only cause profound stress, but it removes a child's primary source of safety and comfort. The experience of separation creates fear, anxiety, and stress, And prolonged exposure to stress increases the risk for what's called toxic stress. And toxic stress occurs when the body's stress response is triggered frequently or intensely for long periods of time without that adequate support or coping. It can affect development, metabolic and immune function in a growing child, and it can even lead to physical and mental health problems into adulthood, including heart disease, anxiety, depression, and substance use disorder. And children whose parents have been detained experience a profound stress response that can manifest as refusing to eat, difficulty sleeping and paying attention in school, difficulty regulating their emotions, and anxiety and depression. I've had parents tell me their children call them during the school day just to make sure they're okay. I had mothers tell me that since their husband's detainment, the children will not sleep alone. They follow their mothers around the house and beg them not to leave for fear that they too will disappear. We are also seeing increased depression and suicidal ideation from teens down to elementary school aged children, engaging in self-harm, terrified of being separated from their families. And pediatricians like me too are also witnessing a chilling effect where families avoid medical care and use of public services for which they qualify out of fear of potential punishment for their families, regardless of their child's immigration status. Since January 2026, our clinic has seen an increase in patient no-shows from 10% to 18% now, including, for example, 51 children who didn't attend a nurse visit, and those are often scheduled specifically for vaccines and getting kids ready for school. 244 out of 808 children, or 23% of children in the past 6 months, didn't attend their primary care visit, and this is a clinic that serves primarily Latino families. Children are missing routine visits where they receive vaccines, care for diabetes or asthma, therapies and treatment for conditions ranging from cerebral palsy to autism. And when children miss out on this care, it can turn routine pediatric issues into emergencies. Healthcare settings need to remain safe, protected spaces for us to care for all children. Immigrant families are threaded into the fabric of our communities, as we've talked about here today. But when we pull out those threads, the entire fabric weakens and frays. And I hope our local, state, and federal leaders can advance immigration policies that prioritize the health and well-being of all children and not policies that cause lasting damage. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Caballero. Mr. Castro.
I appreciate the invitation to speak today, so thank you. My name is David Castro. Over the past 4 years, I was the community school director at Lakeland Elementary Middle School, the 11th largest school in the entire district, with a student body that averaged around 1,050 and was nearly 80% Hispanic. The city schools with similarly large Hispanic demographics tend to be the most concentrated in the southern and southeastern regions, which includes Highlandtown, John Rura, Holabird Academy, Armistead Gardens, Grayson Park, O'Donnell Heights, and Marie G. Faring Elementary Middle, all having 60% or higher of the respective student bodies. The community school coordinators at many of these schools were colleagues of mine. If we didn't already work for the same lead agency, we'd often run into each other at district events, and we had opportunities to swap stories and just tap into what was happening in our respective communities. Just several weeks after the results of the 2024 presidential election, Lakeland hosted a Know Your Rights workshop for families by partnering with Ayuda, a Northern Virginia-based immigration rights advocacy group that serves the entire DMV region. I watched as less than 10 families showed up. In January 2025, the school's annual all-you-can-eat pancake breakfast that could easily draw between 300 and 400 families saw their ticket sales nearly halved in leading up to the weeks of the event. A financial literacy workshop that I personally hosted in March of that year in 2025 focused on tax filing attracted just one single family. And this was weeks before the IRS and ICE finalized their infamous MOU for data sharing between agencies to aid in deportation efforts. Local businesses reported to me personally dips in activity, particularly our local banks. In the immediate months following the release of the district's guidance and protocols for encounters with immigration enforcement officials on school campuses, a significant number of families stopped sending their children to school, citing fear of immigration enforcement. There was no code available to excuse such an absence. It was considered unlawful, despite being a completely legitimate concern, especially in the wake of federal administration's blatant efforts to reverse precedents and now consider churches, schools, and courthouses fair ground for immigration enforcement activities. Schools with larger Hispanic populations were facing a disproportionate drop in attendance and having to spend extra resources to toe that line with hearing families' concerns while upholding state law regarding student attendance, similar to that of the COVID-19 pandemic when families still resisted sending their children to school, and yet their doors were reopened. Beginning Christmas Eve of 2025, federal agents began a coordinated immigration enforcement campaign in our specific community that has affected, to date, nearly 30 families involving 50 students. As a result, safety has become a recurring theme whenever parent feedback is solicited at events. Our social workers and mental health providers consistently have their case loads maxed. Meanwhile, many local organizations that supported immigrant rights saw their funding streams come under attack by the federal administration, with some even receiving cease and desist letters. In response, Lakeland rose to meet the moment by partnering with experts in standby guardianship, as well as becoming a de facto passport office, since many of the nearby library branches that offered passport services either weren't equipped to handle a sudden influx of Spanish-speaking families, or transportation to their spread out locations just wasn't possible. Passport applications for children under 16 require the signature of both biological parents, with few exceptions, such as in the cases of imprisonment or detainment by the US government, or when proof of sole legal custody or a court order are available to circumvent another parent's signature. This made time of the essence, since a parent's status via ICE detainee locator feature on their website could be used to satisfy the detainment exemption. So this strategy by our own government became clear. Target fathers or heads of household, cut off the main source of family income, pressure the detained parent to agree to a quick deportation, and force the remaining family members to self-deport in an effort to reunite. Coordination with embassies and local groups like CASA became essential if families saw themselves as unable to afford flights back to their countries of origin. The cost of immigration enforcement actions runs deep. Employers afraid to hire certain individuals, and landlords cutting ties with longtime residents due to liability. Children being kept in the dark as to suddenly why mom or dad inexplicably left. Growing mistrust with all uniformed agents, including police. Families afraid to seek help. Rampant misinformation and speculation whenever police presence or perceived immigration enforcement activity is observed, and a decrease in student enrollment, resulting in the reduction of per pupil funding for schools that ultimately goes towards funding staff positions and other critical resources. The number of existing supports that can assist families in these situations is shrinking. Trust between communities and agencies is eroding. Stress levels amongst parents are at an all-time high. And despite everything that I mentioned, there are neighboring communities that can be entirely unaffected and not see any of this in their day-to-day lives, which makes it hard to relate to what is happening to those who are affected. While Hispanic residents make up only about 9% of Baltimore City's population, Hispanic students make up 20% of city schools' over 76,000 total enrollment. I urge city officials and school leaders to coordinate with schools that are leading the fight and to share resources with those that are struggling, so that students can continue to learn without having to worry about this level of distraction that this crisis is causing. In recent years, Hispanic residents have been largely accredited for drastically slowing the city's overall population decline. So I think it's time that we give back and help them and other vulnerable groups during this unprecedented time of need. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Castro. Thank you to all of our panelists. We could spend a full week here with the four of you and the community engaged in deep conversations around what's taking place around the country and especially in our communities. We don't have that time today. I do want to not only thank you for your testimony, but each of you, your testimony reflects years of deep, embedded, trusted work alongside our immigrant neighbors. And it's obvious not only your commitment level, but how much you bring of yourselves and pour of yourselves into that work. So we are grateful for that work that you do every day that doesn't happen in this space, and for sharing just a bit of it here with us. Our next turn is to public testimony, but I want to give our the members of the committee who are here a chance to ask questions of our panelists, and then move into our public testimony.
And we'll keep it short just to be able to have time to hear people's voices. I actually just wanted to express my thanks to all of you for not only being here, but really spending a lot of time with our community and lifting up their voice today, but also just in general, this work is really, really hard. And it's emotionally taxing, but you're here and you're doing it. And we're so grateful for all that that you continue to do. I do have a question for Mr. Castro. You know, what you described is exactly what we've been hearing. And I was curious as to, in your role as a community school coordinator at the time, and obviously this was at the beginning of all of this, so things have shored up a little bit, I hope, at the school system. But what support, information, knowledge did you get to be able to support your families?
You know, you learn very quickly how to rely on your network of colleagues. You know, there can be sometimes a little bit of a hoarding of resources because the exponential growth of the Community School Initiative, the resources available haven't matched that growth, the number of schools that have been growing over time. And that is a fundamental problem. It's not a problem that we have more schools that want to be community schools or that the district wants to include more. It just hasn't matched what is available. So you become very resourceful into tapping into all levels around you and in your community, associations, your businesses, what people are willing to donate and give. But this is a level of crisis that just, you know, even though you could have seen maybe what was coming, the way things caught people by surprise, the level of just brashness of the tactics and techniques by federal agents to do what they did, the personal stories that I heard from families about how their loved ones were apprehended, all of it incredibly illegal. And it's something that is incredibly taxing, like you said. And I found that you had to really dig deep. We partner with groups like Just Neighbors. We partnered with a lot of groups that we just tried to do whatever possible to be, as the principal of Lakeland said, that calm in the storm. A lot of times there was very little we could do because when a family has a separated and broken up foundation like that, what do they need? They need to survive. They need money. We can't easily just give them money. We can give them things, but those things will last a finite amount of time. So it was a very taxing and losing battle, I felt, because, you know, like the metaphor of putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. And I hate to use that term, but that's often what it felt like. And I would be lying if I didn't say that it was a contributing factor to why I'm not in the position anymore.
Thank you for letting us know that. I mean, I think my experience with our school, community school coordinators is you just find whatever you possibly can. But we should be guiding each one, not just the community school coordinators, but our educators and our school leaders as to what are the resources out there so that everybody's clear on what's available. Sure, it's not one size fits all, I get that. But I remember during the pandemic, I put together housing resources because people needed housing resources. And I sent it to the community schools folks. I sent it to BTU, remember? And so at least we had all of those resources available. So I think we need to do something similar. But I very much appreciate your willingness to be here today and to talk about that.
If I could add one thing.
Of course.
There are a lot of times where there are resources and lists that can be shared with you. And I find that if you actually just call and contact them, it's not quite what you think what it is. So there's a tremendous amount of time that I had to personally spend to create such resource lists for dental for families that didn't have insurance, for medical and primary care visits for families that didn't have insurance, because those who did have insurance had their options. And so it is a very time investing situation where you're just trying to verify what you're even being given and told is one thing, and you find no one even speaks the language when they answer the phone, yet they're supposed to have a language line. Things like that have improved over the years that I've been there, but it was always a struggle.
Thank you very much. Hear that. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Ramos. Councilperson Blanchard.
Yeah, just a really brief comment. I've sort of been wrapping my head around the attendance rates and how, and all that, and how like it hasn't been, we haven't seen a big drop, and we haven't seen the,
Because that data's a year old.
what's for the SY 25-26 data, is that late? Did that,
It's not the full year.
so it stops at,
There's some of the attendance data there is preliminary. Some of it isn't. And I'm looking at Melissa here. There were some preliminary attendance numbers that were shared. They haven't been finalized with the MSDE yet for this last school year. And again, situations vary school by school, community by community as well. But yeah, I would just to move you along here, I would agree that school attendance is remarkably high still, given all that our young people are experiencing, and it speaks to the great work our schools are doing. It also speaks to the fierce commitment to the hopes and the visions for the future of their children that our parents have, that has also been testified to as well. So if that's helpful, we'll have final information in a few months, but I do think it has persisted at a high level, even under these circumstances.
That was pretty much the point I was going to make, and I guess I better stated than I could have. Obviously, I'm an attestament, of course, to the whole entire ecosystem that's supporting the families, their children, and city schools through this. I guess I'm also very interested to see what the actual, once the numbers stop being preliminary as well. So, thank you.
Just a quick follow-up. I think it's also compared to enrollment. So if somebody drops out of school, they're not included in the attendance numbers anymore. So that's something that we have to look at as well, okay? Yeah. So that we're looking at a slight drop in absences, but the actual, dropping out of school, that's right. And so then they're not included in those numbers. So I do think that it's actually much more dramatic, but we need to get those final numbers to see what that is, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilperson Ramos. Thank you, Mr. Blanchard. Our chair is back. I just had one final observation for you all, and then I think we're probably ready for our chair to move us towards the public testimony.
Oh, you're good.
He had said he did not. You all mentioned really intersecting things, also intersect with the previous testimony, especially from the health department. I'm going to keep thinking about what Mary Beth said for a while. You mentioned toxic stress, Dr. Caballero. Ms. Barrios, you mentioned anticipated grief, right? Ms. Dayhoff, you described the social isolation, right? And then the curling for safety, but the curling in of ourselves. It ties back to the question that I asked the school system too about what's the data that we currently capture that can try to describe the impact, the current impact of that. And granted that's hard. I mean, I think all of us that work in frontline human services positions, whether in the schools or outside the schools with young people, can describe very eloquently what this does to young people as individuals and collectively, but also in ways that they're sometimes hard to capture, and also in ways that the harm continues for years afterwards or for a long period of time. And Dr. Caballero, you mentioned the way the toxic stress is manifest, and the health department mentioned adverse childhood experiences and the way that carries through. And so just to note that there's things that we may not be able to put on a slide here, but that you all have described, and city schools and others have described very powerfully in terms of what this is doing to our young people and what it potentially means carrying forward. And how critical then the resources that we're deploying here, whether it's through MEMA, the health department, city schools, or all the work that you all are doing in our communities to support students right now in the midst of this harm, so that we can preserve alongside them the future that they want for themselves and their families want for them. So just an observation, but thank you all for naming that in each of your own ways. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair Parker, for taking the reins in my steed. And now we're going to go on to a public testimony, but I do also want to thank the panelists as well. Just providing that level of expertise is very helpful in an environment such as this. So again, thank you for that, and thank you for our colleagues. So as we move on to public testimony, again, as you come to the podium and you approach the microphone, please press the button on the right with the little person icon so we can hear you. It'll light up red, such as this. And looks like first on our list is one of our Baltimore School Commissioners, Mr. Kwame Kenyatta Bey. Please come forward, and thank you for providing your testimony.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'm coming from a very granular sort of perspective. And so, first of all, I thank Chair Bullock and the City Council for holding this. My name is Kwame Kenyatta Bey, and before I begin, I'd like to share something with you why this issue is deeply personal to me. On July 11th, my mother-in-law was laid to rest. Just 2 weeks before her funeral, my brother-in-law was taken into custody by Customs and Enforcement. As a result, he was unable to attend his own mother's funeral or be present with family during one of the most painful moments in our lives. I share this not to invite sympathy or to debate anyone's position on immigration policy, but simply to explain that I have experienced firsthand how immigration enforcement can profoundly affect families. I've seen the emotional toll, the disruption, the lasting impact of these circumstances that can have on loved ones. Because of that experience, I come before you today, not only as an educator, but also as someone who understands personally how these issues reach far beyond policy discussions into the lives of real people. I appear before you today in my personal capacity. Although I serve as a commissioner on the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners, the views I share are my own and not official position of, not official position of the board or Baltimore City Public Schools. My perspective also comes from more than 3 decades as an educator in Baltimore. I've taught business and finance and later served as a multilingual learner teacher. Throughout those years, I came to understand a simple but profound truth. Education is built on relationships, and relationships are built on trust. Early in my teaching career, I established a volunteer income tax assistance program at my school. Students were trained to prepare tax returns for community members, and the program was recognized by then Comptroller Louis Goldstein. But the program's greatest success was not the recognition. It was that families who had rarely entered the school began to see it as a welcoming place. Naturally, the conversations turned toward their children's education and their futures. That trust strengthened both the families and the schools. Later, as a multilingual learner teacher, I witnessed how fear of interacting with government institutions sometimes affects school participation. Some parents hesitated to attend school events. Some students carried worries into a classroom that no child should have to bear. I remember one afternoon when a student approached me with tears in her eyes and asked, "Are they going to take my father away?" For that child, the fear of losing a caregiver was not a political question. It was the fear of losing the person who provided love, stability, and security for many children. That anchor makes the difference between being able to focus on learning or carrying an unbearable burden into school every day. My request today is not to debate federal immigration policy. Rather, I respectfully encourage the council to provide clear, lawful, and easily understandable guidance regarding the city's policies. Clarity reduces confusion. Clarity builds trust, and trust helps families remain connected to the schools that serve their children. Every policy decision touches real children, real families, real communities, and real people. When we remember that, we make better decisions. Thank you for your time, your service, and your thoughtful consideration.
Just thank you for your ongoing service and commitment to our young people, and also just thank you for sharing your personal story and being vulnerable with us, because we recognize that it's not a political situation, as you mentioned. It's something that affects many families, including yours, so we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next, I see Carlos Gonzalez. And as you come up, feel free to adjust the microphone if you like, so we can hear you. You don't have to press that. Just that. Yeah, there you go. You're perfect.
You're good. Push it again. There you go.
All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carlos Gonzalez, and I'm here to discuss the impact of ICE on students and family in Baltimore City. As a Latino, I have heard of fear that immigration enforcement can create within the immigrant community. In Baltimore City, the increased presence by ICE has affected not only a documented individual, but also the entire neighborhood. They have created challenges that have a significant impact on student education, emotion, and well-being. In our community trust, one of the most serious effects of ICE enforcement is the fear it creates among students. Children worry that a parent or family member could be detained while they're at school. This anxiety can make it difficult for students to concentrate in class, complete assignment, and fully participate in school activities. Some students may even miss school because their family fear interacting with public institutions. As a result, their academic performance and overall education experience can suffer. When a parent is detained or deported, family may lose a primary source of income, experience food insecurity, and increased stress within the household. Children often experience feelings of sad, fear, or uncertainty about their future. This emotion burden can have a long-term effect on their mental health and personal development. In Baltimore City Schools play an important role in supporting immigrant students and their family. Educators, counselors, and community organizations work to create a safe environment where students feel welcome regardless of their immigration status and treated with dignity and respect under the law. Thank you for your time.
No, thank you for your time. Very well spoken. And I might also add, you might be better dressed than me today. I like that three-piece suit. You're looking real smooth. Thank you for that. Good job. Thank you. Zayan Paran.
Sorry, I'm loud. I couldn't tell if it was one or not. Good afternoon. My name is Zayan Paran, and I'm a senior and a co-president of SOMOS, Students Organizing a Multicultural and Open Society. Throughout the year, SOMOS has presented a number of policies to Baltimore City Public Schools, and we urge you to take them into consideration as well. Number one is a preparedness packet. It's a comprehensive document containing safety plans and instructions regarding powers of attorney, medical decisions, and standby guardianship. We need all staff trained on these resources. Back to school nights would be a great opportunity to support parents on understanding and completing critical paperwork. Number two is BCPS training on psychosocial support for immigrant families, including training on the symptoms and impact of anticipatory grief in children. This must be culturally responsive and include Black immigrant communities and historical analysis into the conversation surrounding ICE, not simply where we are now, but how we even got here in the first place. Our third suggestion is immigration-related excused absences, including treating immigration appointments just like doctor's appointments and the deportation or detention of a family member like a death in the family. While BCPSS has adopted this policy, principals and community members remain unaware of the policy change. This must be widely communicated to families and visible on the school website. Number four are school safety protocols. This includes mandatory, ongoing staff training and practice on how to respond to ICE on campus, working with staff and volunteers on safe passages for students and parents around bus stops and pickup and drop-off locations around school, and the most effective ways to report ICE sightings and alert the community. We've seen the more measures must be put in place because our schools remain unsure of what to do in an ICE-related emergency. ICE agents roaming the streets of Baltimore is a school issue, a public safety concern, an employment risk, and plainly a political tactic used to erase diversity in America. While SOMOS applauds Baltimore City Public Schools on its efforts to try to support students, your efforts have not trickled down to assistant principals, counselors, social workers, or office staff. This is not simply about handing policies down, but ensuring families understand and have support willing and available to them, and the willingness to get dirty and fight with us for the protection of every Baltimorean. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate you being an active and engaged leader amongst our young people and also using your voice to push the city to do even more. So thank you for that. All right, Nathan Farrell.
Good afternoon. I'll try and be brief. My name is Nathan. I'm a Spanish teacher in city schools, and I'm here to first acknowledge I appreciate the council asking the questions you did to city schools. When we faced the issue of language access, that's been an ongoing issue, but when we really hit it head on a few years ago, we got a lot of, oh no, you don't understand, we're doing the right thing, we have the resources, it's fine. And it wasn't until concerted effort by the community, months and months of public comment, did the district move, do the landscape analysis, and then begin pivoting resources. So I appreciate the pushback when we're saying, hey, we're hearing a different story. We need to stay in dialogue. Please continue to do that, because it is our fight every day. I want to acknowledge our community school coordinator. This is a constant thing we're hearing, is that there is not a centralized repository, updated centralized repository of resources. It is every community school coordinator on their own, creating their own, reinventing the wheel themselves at their school site. I want to acknowledge everything our clinical social workers are saying at our schools. The caseloads are maxing out within a month or two. That's our school counselors, school psychs, social workers, even external partners who are adding capacity for, managing the trauma that the kids are going through. So by December, anybody who has a caseload to help a kid, they're maxed out. So it's just teachers, paras, and school-based staffs holding lunch bunches, helping kids who are crying in their arms, trying to manage the trauma, and that's what we're going to see again this school year. So resources are needed. And then I want to emphasize the importance of hand-to-hand touch. We have to get the actual resource in the hands of the school-based staff. An email, frankly, is not sufficient. A one-day training in August is not sufficient. There is a fantastic one-pager from MEMA going over Safe City. Every single one of those colored copies needs to be on the front desk at every single school. We need the resources at the schools. That requires hand-to-hand touch, that requires central office staff at the school touching the hand of the service providers and the educators. Appreciate all of you all. Thanks.
No, thank you. No, we appreciate you, not only in terms of being an educator, talking about language access, but literally raising the flag. I mean, I look at these yellow shirts for the BTU, and literally you're on this daily fight. You're literally the canary in the coal mine who's telling us what's happening. So again, we thank you for doing that. Let's see. Corey Garcia Grant, or I can't read the handwriting.
Corey Garcia, or Grant, yeah.
And from BCPSS, and if next we have Jill Muth. And I'll keep going down the list if folks don't come, but yeah, please come on up.
It's definitely Corey.
Okay. Is Corey here? If not, Jill's up. All right.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair. Oh. Oh, wow. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair and members of City Council. My name is Jill Muth, and I am a resident of District 10 in Pigtown. I'm speaking today solely in my personal capacity as a concerned Baltimore resident. I am a fourth-generation resident of South Baltimore, and my investment in this city is deeply personal. My own family came to Baltimore from Romania and Ireland, fleeing poverty and starvation during the era of the Know Nothing riots, when Catholic immigrants like my great-great-grandparents faced threats, hostility, and violence simply because of where they came from and how they worshiped. I do not want today's children to inherit the same fear and exclusion that confronted the generations who came before us. We should be able to promise them something better. Many of you know me from my work in public service, and my capacity to serve is only possible because I had safe access to an education here in Baltimore City. This is what allows me to serve my community today. To further remind us of what we gain culturally from immigrant communities, I want to name here today that we have Old Bay, one of our proudest cultural hallmarks as Marylanders, because Baltimore City accepted a refugee named Gustav Brunn, who fled with his family after escaping a Nazi concentration camp in Buchenwald. I wonder what pieces of our shared culture are being stolen from us with each neighbor that goes missing and each child whose education is interrupted. I've seen this firsthand after the Baltimore uprising and the death of Freddie Gray, when I worked as a teacher's aide with 3rd and 4th graders at Roots and Branches School in Sandtown. These were very young children, but they understood something frightening had happened around them. They had recently seen National Guard tanks and vehicles in their neighborhood and disturbing news footage. They felt the fear and tension of the adults around them. I saw that fear return whenever they saw a police officer or encountered anything that reminded them of that time. What those children experienced became a foundational memory of their childhood. What our students experience today will also become a foundational memory. At Commodore John Rogers Elementary School, every child who watched a mother and father be arrested and removed was affected. Every child who went home wondering whether the same thing could happen to their own family was affected. That memory is forever attached to their pre-K and kindergarten graduation ceremony, a moment that is supposed to be about joy and celebration. Even children who are not immigrants absorb this fear. They hear about federal agents, arrests, shootings, and families being separated. They notice when class friends disappear or when their parents are suddenly afraid to come to school. Adults may struggle to explain what is happening, but children know that something is wrong, and an entire generation is being asked to carry this trauma. When we place this fear on our children, we don't merely frighten them in the present, we interfere with their development, education, and opportunities to become happy, healthy, successful adults. When a child's ability to learn is diminished, so is that child's future and our shared destiny as a city. This harm falls most heavily on children who are already vulnerable. Immigrant students are not burdens on our schools. They bring language, culture, history, resilience, and perspectives that enrich the learning environment for everyone. All of our children benefit when school is inclusive. The children living through this moment will remember it and will tell their own children one day what it felt like to be afraid, what they saw happen to their classmates and their neighbors, and what the adults and the institutions around them chose to do. It is my prayer that they are telling that story from a better and safer future. And it is also my prayer that they can say that when it mattered, we stood beside them. If I may end on a practical suggestion after hearing some of the fellow panelists' comments, I would urge us to depend on some of the resources deployed during the COVID-19 crisis from our health department in disseminating information to our families, specifically Charm Care, which I have found to be a great resource in my own work, but to approach it with that level of urgency because, as so many have described, it is truly a crisis. Thank you all for your time today.
No, thank you. Thank you first for your service to our young people. I'm glad you mentioned being a District 10 resident. You also talked about doing some work at Roots and Branches in the 9th District, so doing work across the city. But also, I'm glad you talked about your family history because whether you are a person of color or you're Catholic like we are, again, we think about some of the discrimination that we've seen across these lines. And the other piece, I'm glad you lifted up that Old Bay story because again, we wouldn't have it if we're not such a welcoming place for immigrants. And to your point that you ended on, again, the richness that is brought by our immigrant community. So thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you.
All right, and if I mispronounce someone's last name, please forgive me. I see Nilsa Yerluka. I'm not sure if I got it right. Please correct me when you get up here, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I don't need to put it lower. Yeah, today is a good practice to do this. Yeah, do I press something? Yes. So, yes, my name is Nilsa Yurivilka Swasnavar, and I work as the Advocacy Case Management Supervisor at the Asylum Women Enterprise. This is a nonprofit serving asylum seekers and immigrant trafficking survivors with holistic services as they rebuild their life and make Baltimore City their home. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm here specifically today to share some of what we witness in our different case lots and also to rely the testimonies of our community members that have shared with us about the immigration enforcement and its impact on the sense of safety in schools and extracurricular activities. Many of these families has trusted to bring those words and those stories to you today. And I just want to highlight some of them because there were a lot of testimonies. One mother of a kindergartner that is enrolling an intensive supervision program. She wears an ankle monitor, attends monthly ICE check-ins in Hanover. That day, she was scheduled to have an ICE check-in invasive in her house. She needed to remain home The ICE agent never communicated, never showed up, and never did anything. And she missed her daughter's kindergarten graduation. Very, very important for a young child to see her mom in the crowd applauding for her. A father who we work also with him, his son had finally begun thriving in kindergarten after struggling during his first few months. An English learner to acquainted with all this system is very unsettling. He finally finds the courage and the resilience of many of these children. And then several members of their community in their church were placed on ankle monitors. And the family learned that someone in their church also got deported. His son immediately increased his anxiety. He started withdrawing from school and became very upset each time his father needed to go report to ICE again. So another mother of 3 children attending Baltimore City schools describes that her family routine has been disrupted after ICE agents were reported near her son's school. People were detained near her home, so every day she needed to make an alternative plan to get them to school. She gonna change routes, and last summer she enrolled one of her sons in a soccer program at Patterson Park, but immediately withdrew him after she learned that agents were showing up at the park. Children are kept home and isolated. Another mother who has a young daughter and really a toddler goes to Baltimore City schools. She lives very nearby 7-Eleven and Home Depot, and she said that right now during the vacation time, she's relieved because she doesn't need to go every day with that anxiety, forcing her to think about what if she's gonna encounter an agent and left her children behind. The reality is really real among our families. One of them, she is a single mom. She is the only solely provider of that family. She has been sending, obviously, her children to school, but fighting with her anxiety. She, in her own words, says that she's very scared. She's very scared because my son only has me as a mother. We do not have anybody else here. I'm afraid of that government that would take him away from me. I am afraid to leave the house and not know if I'm gonna come back. I even don't know if I ever get detained, I'm gonna be back alive. I have seen that they are very aggressive and killing people on the streets. The other day, I saw them take a father away. One of the immigration officers had to stay behind with a baby who was about 2 years old. Most of the people they are detaining are not criminals, and we shouldn't be reminding them that they are fathers or mothers. They are simply residents of our cities. We also serve teenage clients who are attending Baltimore City schools, and many of them are terrified. These are some of their stories too. The father, there is one client specifically who shared that who graduated this spring, shared that they were very afraid to go to school because they were afraid that something would happen to them or to their family members. At one point, they stopped attending school for a period of time after hearing that ICE was maybe checking schools. The fear of immigration enforcement also affected their family, causing them to stop going out as a family to other family gatherings. They were afraid that somebody won't come back from work. They were very afraid that someone of them will be detained. And another family of a teen also shared that there is there is a grocery market that he has to cross over to get to high school. And he's very afraid every time he needs to cross that market because he knows that over there people got detained and harassed. So again, this is only a small part and a small sample that illustrate how the current immigration enforcement has affected parents and children. But that's led to get worse for our families and so many others. With the newly daily arrest quotas, raising the massive ramp-ups in the purchase of ICE detention centers, and the attack of due process in immigration court, children will continue to miss school. Parents will continue to miss the milestones of their families. And most importantly, they will not feel safe again in the main place that should be safe. And I think that everybody agrees that every child deserves to learn, play, and thrive without fear, and every parent deserves to send their child to school without wondering whether their family will be together at the end of the day. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for sharing these very real and deeply challenging and painful stories. And a lot of us can understand and share in that. One of the things I would just note from your comments, and I think we all know this in this room, but literally our brother and sister immigrants are doing exactly what they've been charged to do, right? They're sending their children to school, they're going to work, they're worshiping, they're shopping in our communities. And now because of this enforcement, their routines are now being disrupted, right? They're missing graduations and other opportunities to engage with their families. So again, thank you for bringing these stories to the light. Danielle Preishoff, please. And after Danielle Preishoff, I see Ida Kerner. Okay.
Hi, thank you. My name is Ida Kenna. I'm here as a member of the Greater Baltimore Democratic Socialists of America, for which I serve as the chair of our Trans Rights and Bodily Autonomy Working Group, which has been directing our migrant rights work. Our organization has 1,500 members, roughly, the vast majority of whom live in Baltimore City, many of whom are teachers, parents, and even some high school students. I've heard from all three the fear they have been made to feel for our schools, students, and families, for migrants and non-citizens in particular. What happened to the family of Jesus and Adriana Sanchez several weeks ago crossed a new line, but it was not the first time city students have lost their parents to this racist regime, and it was not entirely unanticipated. I've heard many of our members express disturbance to the fact that many of the officials who responded expressed their shock to the attack on school grounds because they maintain cooperative agreements to some extent with DHS leadership who promised this wouldn't happen. This demand will only grow louder. Our public officials should not be working with ICE. They should not trust the word of ICE. I deeply appreciate how some of our city council members have been not only policymakers, but full-time community organizers for protecting our migrant neighbors from this terror. Council members Parker and Ramos especially. Thank you so much. No children should be attacked by ICE or have to lose their parents to them as the federal government works to forcibly place them in adoptive households and trap their parents in hell. Whether on school grounds or not, this is traumatic and disrupts education along with so much else. Our entire city council should take every possible step to obstruct ICE operations across the city, as well as to agitate the state to do the same and to get everyone kidnapped home safely. We lose several people on a weekly basis, and it needs to be stopped. We watch ICE murder people in the streets with accusations of weaponizing their vehicle, the same accusations made of Jesus Acevedo Sanchez, as well as Tiago Alexander Souza Martins, who was shot by ICE twice last Christmas Eve and incarcerated with a bullet in his back without adequate medical care for his injuries. He remains in custody with that bullet. After the murder of Johan Guerrero 10 days ago, DHS claimed they would stop doing traffic stops, which is the same tactic that they killed Renee Good and more recently Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. Yet we've seen these traffic stops continue on Baltimore City streets. If local government doesn't stop them, they will kill our neighbors. Thank you.
No, thank you for your comments. One of the things that I will mention, I'll echo something that you did mention, was that, yes, we are talking about this in Baltimore, but the reality is that we're talking about what this looks like writ large. And so you mentioned those traffic stops, the increased level of violence and trauma that our families are experiencing through those activities. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And also, as we know, that this has deep racial implications as well that you've also mentioned. So again, as you mentioned, many of our colleagues, our goal is to be cooperative with the community, to be collaborative with the community. So again, thank you for lifting that up. I see Cindy Fargad. Not sure if I pronounced it yet. Now I don't have the best handwriting. Farquhar. Villanova Community Association. All right, we'll hold out for you. I'll keep going down the list. We already got that. Fernanda Rodriguez. All right.
Good afternoon. My name is Fernanda Rodriguez. I volunteer with Latino Racial Justice Circle, and I work for THREAD. THREAD is present in 7 different high schools in the city. I am specifically responsible for Patterson High School, where there is a sizable Latino community. In my community, we have experienced, I have witnessed it, kids that stop going to school because they are afraid, because they lost a guardian, a parent, whatever, a person that was responsible for them, and they felt not only afraid, but also felt like the responsibility of picking up the responsibilities that were of that person in their lives that were taken away, right? So they become providers, which is not ideal at all. Our kids are struggling with all sorts of problems, and I don't need to say that. I heard from everyone here that has been working with the communities. I think there are things we can do, and we are working together, and I appreciate you all for the work you do. As I was walking in today, I learned about a program that is running in PG, and I thought that was a great idea. That is sheltering in place. So I don't know if you guys heard about it already, but I think it's something to consider because as an inclusive city, Baltimore should try to put in place whatever policies we can to make sure that our young people are feeling safe when they go to school. And I wish could be extended to the whole city because THREAD, we bring our children out to do a lot of things. And unfortunately, many families are feeling like, no, my kid cannot attend this social engagement because we are afraid. And that is absolutely not acceptable. I know it's beyond the city powers, but whatever is within the city powers for us to do, I appreciate continuing the conversation. And as I said before, for the work you guys are doing. Thank you.
No, and thank you for the work you do. I mean, we know that THREAD does some very impactful work as well, but as you mentioned, the impacts on our young people, right? So not just the missed school, but also the mental health challenges and other issues and trying to adjust to such an unjust situation. So again, thank you. And as far as policies, I think it is also good to look at other jurisdictions and think about what potential best practices are out there. So appreciate you lifting that up. Let's see, Olivia Wilson.
Hello, this right here. All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Olivia Wilson, a 2026 graduate at Baltimore City Public School. Starting my first semester at UMBC. I've been also a member of We Are CASA for about 2 years now, in which I have been learning a lot about my values and rights. I have been with their Mi Espacio program for 2 years as well. As an immigrant student, I've been facing far more difficulties than the average student, and opportunities have been far less frequent. In addition to this challenge, the issue of mass deportations are resurfaced, severely impeding my mental health and that of those around me. Saying my mother, my friends, and myself, living in fear of being separate, filling me with constant anxiety. Every day, I wonder if I will ever return home, if my mother will return, if my friends will return, or if their families will. We, as an immigrant community who came here seeking a better future, whose parents sacrificed so much to give us a better life, do not deserve to be intimidated. We are a strong community. Everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. No one should have to live in fear simply because they are seeking better opportunities for themselves and their families. We urge you to continue fighting against ICE activity in Baltimore City and in schools so that students can enjoy their school year without being mentally affected by the anxiety of being apprehended by ICE. Education is a fundamental right and should not be disrespected by fear or intimidation. Thank you so much for listening.
No, thank you for sharing. One thing I'll just say is you mentioned, being a college student. I think about some of the students that I'll be teaching next month and think about the challenge and the weight that they're carrying along in that space. So again, kudos to you, but also it's something, a weight that folks should not have to bear. Also, when you talk about, parents, and that's really the goal of any parent is to have a better life for their young people. And I say that as many of us are up here as parents, and it's part of the American dream and why so many folks have come here to better their lives. And so thank you for lifting that up. Very much appreciated. We also have, Jason Membrane. We are Casa. Okay, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jason Membrano. As a high school senior in Baltimore City Public Schools and community member of We Are Casa, I have seen how the presence of ICE in our communities can have a serious impact on students, even when there are only rumors or news about immigration enforcement. Many students immediately become worried. Instead of focusing on school, they start thinking about whether their parents or other family members are safe. As a Hispanic student, one of my biggest fears is that one day someone I love, whether it is a family member or a close friend, might not come home because they were detained. Sometimes that thought stays with me throughout the school day. Even when I try to focus on my classes, it is hard not to wonder if the people I care about are safe. I know I'm not the only student who feels this way. Many of my friends have shared the same fears about their families. This fear also affects younger children, who should be able to focus on learning, making friends, and enjoying their childhood instead of worrying about whether their parents will be home after school. Living with this kind of fear affects the students in many ways. It makes it harder to concentrate, participate in class, and do our best academically. It also affects our mental health because carrying this stress every day is emotionally exhausting. Schools should be places where every student feels safe enough to learn, grown, and plan for their future. No student should have to spend the day worrying about whether the people they love will be safe when they get home. Thank you.
No, thank you. I could just say all of us know how difficult it is just to get through high school, period, but then to have that fear and to have to work and try to focus, having that in your spirit, I know that must be very challenging. So again, we thank you for sharing that, and we know that so many other people, so many young people are affected just the way that you are, so thank you for that. I know we do have some folks who are online testify, but if there's anyone else here in the chambers right now who would like to testify, please come forward, and if not, we will go to some of our online testimony. Yes, please. Coming to us now is Ashley Esposito. Thank you.
I'm just going to make this real short, but yeah, thank you for having me. Oh, wait, is that on?
It's on. You got it.
Okay, cool. I'll make this real short, but I just wanted to say thank you all for holding space for everyone to give their testimony. I thank everyone that shared personal stories about how they've been impacted by ICE, especially my fellow commissioner. I'm like just at a loss. My heart's just been broken. Even in my own community, we've had to, talk about mutual aid networks and really get to know our neighbors better and see who really needed support. Like even my kiddo, and seeing his best friends and having conversations with their parents about what happens if one of them gets picked up and who is the backup for supporting their kid. Just navigating all the legal parts of it. It's hard for me to articulate everything because it has been extremely overwhelming, and I think that we've felt it like all across the city. So I just thank you all for your work, and to families that are tuning in or listening and not sure what to do. This is hyper localized, really lean on your faith-based communities, folks that you trust, and if you need support, just reach out. That's the best we can do, but we're gonna make it. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you to your service to our city as not only a board of school commissioners, but then also just from your lived experience, right? From a personal point of view, and then also what you see in the community. So that is very much appreciated. Now we are going to go online. I know there is also some folks who may need some Spanish translation. So we'll get to that, but let's see first. I see we have Edwin Perez. Okay, you're now unmuted.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yes,
Good afternoon, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the committee and city council, Councilmember Ramos, Councilmember Parker, and community members. Buenas tardes, miembros del comité y del Consejo Municipal, Concejal Ramos, Concejal Parker, y miembros de la comunidad. My name is Edwin Perez. I serve as a high school Spanish teacher, community and union advocate, and instructor for the Creative Alliance Teen Council. My roots in Highlandtown run deep from my time as a Pratt Children's Librarian, my work at Creative Alliance, and to teaching at the Baltimore City College. Mi nombre es Edwin Pérez, soy educador de español, soy activista sindical, soy miembro de CAPSI y varios grupos comunitarios, y soy instructor del Consejo Juvenil de la Danza Creativa. Mis raíces en Highlandtown son profundas, desde mi trabajo como bibliotecario infantil en Enoch Pratt, mi trabajo con la danza creativa, hasta mi labor docente en la escuela secundaria de Baltimore City College. Lately, our affected neighborhoods feel empty. The places where our teenagers should be gathering, learning, and growing, our high schools, libraries, and parks, are quiet because families and youth are staying indoors out of fear. Últimamente, nuestros vecindarios afectados se sienten vacíos. Los lugares donde nuestros jóvenes deberían reunirse, aprender y crecer, nuestras escuelas secundarias, bibliotecas y parques, están vacías porque las familias y los jóvenes se quedan encerrados en casa por tener miedo. When ICE enforcement creates panic, the impact on high school students is immediate. We see it in sudden attendance drops as teenagers weigh the risk of commuting. We see it in the eyes of our immigrant and multilingual teens whose focus on their future is stolen by the constant terror of family separation. Cuando la presencia de ICE genera pánico, el impacto en los estudiantes de secundaria es inmediato. Lo vemos en caídas de asistencia, cuando los jóvenes miden el riesgo de ir a la escuela. Lo vemos en los ojos de nuestros adolescentes inmigrantes y multilingües, cuya concentración en su futuro es robada por el terror a la separación familiar. Our high school schoolers are at a critical moment in lives. They cannot thrive academically, socially, or creatively when their basic sense of safety is under siege. Nuestros jóvenes están en un momento crítico de sus vidas. No pueden prosperar académicamente, socialmente, ni creativamente cuando su seguridad básica está bajo amenaza. Educational justice and immigration justice are inseparable. Holding ICE accountable and creating uncompromising protections for our students is a moral imperative. We need strong local coordination that shields our schools and community spaces from intrusive enforcement. La justicia educativa y la justicia migratoria son inseparables. Exigir cuentas a ICE y crear protecciones firmes para nuestros estudiantes es un imperativo moral. Necesitamos una coordinación local sólida que proteja nuestras escuelas y espacios comunitarios. I urge the committee and the council to continue to stand boldly with our immigrant mixed status and multilingual family, youth, and families by adopting stronger safe zone policies that safeguard the dignity of every student in Baltimore. Le pido al comité y al consejo que apoyen firmemente a nuestra juventud y familias inmigrantes y multilingües, adoptando políticas más sólidas que protejan la dignidad de cada estudiante en Baltimore. Every teenager deserves a safe place to learn, a safe place to grow, and a community where they truly belong. Cada joven merece un lugar seguro para aprender, un lugar seguro para crecer, y una comunidad a la que realmente pertenezca. Thank you. Muchas gracias.
No, I would just say thank you not only for teaching our young people, but also translating your testimony as well. But also you lift up some very important things in terms of the sense of safety that's important for our young people, but then also lifting up things like dignity and justice, and that's what this should all be about. So thank you for that. Next we see Melanie Cardonas.
Hi, good afternoon. Yes, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Good afternoon.
Okay, yes. Thank you again for giving us the time to testify. My name is Melanie Cardenas, and I serve as the Senior Program Officer for Liberty's Promise in Baltimore. Liberty's Promise is a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting low-income immigrant youth through after-school civic engagement programs, career readiness, leadership development, and paid internship opportunities. So each year, I work directly with over 50 students in Patterson High School and Benjamin Franklin High School. The students I work with are incredibly resilient. They are learning English, they're balancing school with family responsibilities, preparing for college and careers, and contributing to their communities. However, many of them are also carrying an invisible burden, uncertainty, and fear about immigration enforcement. So I understand a lot of people have spoken about this, and I'm not going to repeat what they said because time is very important. But my main thing is please, if we can invest more time and money into these after-school programs, into these organizations that help these immigrant youth, especially in the public schools. I've heard a lot of testimonies from teachers that are saying they have to do over 500 tasks besides teaching. And I think that's really important that we invest more money into these nonprofits so that we can help our fellow teachers, we can help the youth, and we can help, of course, our city and community into feeling more safe and, of course, making sure we are growing. And that's it.
No, thank you for your testimony. Just thank you for also preparing our young people to be college and career ready. I mean, that's really what it's about in terms of having a productive society and have our young people being prepared. And you mentioned our young people being resilient, and that's true. But again, this is a battle they should not have to fight, and so we're in it with you. So thank you for that. The next one, I'll see phone number ending in 4127. Let's see. You want to say it? Good, do your thing.
No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bueno, vamos a continuar con el testimonio de la persona anónima, quien número de teléfono termina con 4127. Next, we continue with the testimony from one of our neighbors whose phone number ends with 4127. Bueno, no sé si usted está diciendo algo, pero no podemos oír algo en ese momento, pero estamos esperando para su testimonio. Sí, bueno, necesitas hacer algo, hacer un clic allá en su teléfono o en su computadora para cambiar eso y para dar permiso para su sonido.
All right, let's go ahead with Monica if you're ready for your testimony.
Hello.
Yes, good afternoon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I am supposed to do the English translation of the young person who is going to do the translation in Spanish. May I continue reading his testimony in English?
Please.
Thank you. He's having trouble connecting. I'm so sorry about that. So I'm reading word by word what he told me and having his testimony in Spanish. He prefers to stay anonymous. And he started saying, thank you for the opportunity. What we want are safe schools. We can feel at ease outside of school, but inside we are also discriminated against. My friends and I have been targeted for unfair accusations. For example, I have been told that I'm a gang member just because I don't speak English well. We've been told that because we wear rosaries around our necks, we're gang members, but that's not true. We wear them because they are part of our faith. The presence of immigration officials in our schools makes it harder for us to stay. We feel unfairly accused and persecuted both inside and outside of school. We want the people who work in schools, teachers, principals, administrators, to know who we are. We've gone through a lot of hardships and we approach our youth differently because of our experiences. But we're not bad people. There are only a few teachers who listen to us and support us without telling us we're gang members or criminals. I graduated from high school in May, and I'm very proud of that. I received an award for my painting, which will be exhibited at the Smithsonian, and I achieved that thanks to the people who believed in me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those words. One of the things that I know Councilman Ramos and I have talked about this as well is that how so many of our people in our community are being profiled, being unfairly profiled, right? So again, we have folks who are doing the right thing, but oftentimes are painted as criminals or something else when they're just doing the right thing and being persecuted for doing so. So again, we thank you for sharing that. And now you have your own testimony as well, please.
Yes. Thank you. Good afternoon again, Chair, members of the council, and the community members. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Monica Guerrero Vasquez, and I serve as Executive Director of Central Sol. I also lead school-based youth mental health initiatives and serve on the Maryland Commission of Suicide Prevention. I've had the opportunity to see firsthand how stressful this could be for schools and our families. Opinions expressed here are my own and don't necessarily represent those of my organization. Schools are much more than places where children learn. Approximately 95% of youth spend the majority of their daily lives in school environments, positioning schools as central hubs for academic, social, emotional, and ecological supports. Beyond their educational role, schools offer unique opportunities to prevent and mitigate the negative impact of violence, trauma, and mental health distress. They are places where young people build friendships, find trusted adults, access mental health support, and connect to resources that help families thrive. Research consistently shows that feeling connected to school is one of the strongest protective factors for children's mental health and suicide prevention, and I speak that as a first-generation immigrant myself. Baltimore City is home to students and families from around the world, as we have talked all morning today. Today, however, many parents are facing an impossible choice. Should I send my child to school or risk being separated from my family? When families are afraid to attend school, participate in activities, or seek services, the consequences extend far beyond attendance. Fear and isolation undermine children's sense of safety, belonging, and emotional well-being. The U.S. is already experiencing a youth mental health crisis. Latina youth report disproportionately high rates of persistent sadness and suicidal thoughts. Experiences of fear, isolation, and family separation only deepen these challenges and can have lasting effects throughout a child's life. School safety is a public health issue that affects all children, and protecting children regardless of where they are from, where their families are from, or language they speak, or religion they practice means protecting the environments where they learn, grow, and build hope for their future. As we consider policy responses, I encourage us to ask not only how we respond to today's immigration response challenges, but how we ensure that every child in Baltimore schools can walk into school feeling safe, supported, and ready to learn. Thank you for your time and your commitment to Baltimore children and families.
No, thank you for your testimony. And as you mentioned, the resources for our young people and our families are so important. And this is why, again, the work of our community school coordinators is so valuable, as was mentioned before. So again, we thank you for it. Not seeing any more people online to testify and no one else in the chambers, I do want to provide an opportunity for some of our colleagues to give some closing thoughts. Councilman Ramos, would you like to go? And I'll finish up with Vice Chair Parker.
Sure. Mr. Chair, thank you very much for holding this hearing and for our members for being here. Also for everybody who was in the chamber today. This is extremely, extremely important work. And as what Monica just said, everybody deserves to feel safe. And we have to put things in place to make sure that that's the case. And again, our families, our Latino families, because it's also Latino families that may have also status that are afraid because we are being profiled. So it's very important to understand that this is a crisis affecting several communities and the Latino and immigrant community in particular. And so there's certainly a lot that has already been put in place, which I appreciate, but there's certainly a lot more that has to be done. And obviously, we'll see what happens on the national level, but to the extent that we can, we have to do everything we possibly can to make sure that our residents, our students, and our young people are supported if they're going through a crisis of separation of family, or that we can protect them to avoid that situation altogether. So I want to thank everybody for being here today, and thank you to Mr. Chair and to the Vice Chair and co-sponsor for your partnership and advocacy. Thanks.
And thank you, Councilmember. You used the correct term in terms of crisis, right? That really speaks to the urgency of where we are right now. Go to our resident Spanish translator and Vice Chair of the committee, Mark Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody who shared, especially thanks to the panelists for being here and not only for your testimony, but being part of the conversation moving forward. Thank you, Council President Ramos, as always, for your partnership. Mr. Chair, you mentioned in reference to one of our folks who gave testimony today, putting your gratitude for that they put things in a national context. And I was grateful for that as well. I just simply want to say that what we're talking about today and the well-being of immigrant and refugee children and their families here in Baltimore is part of a much broader attack on young people, attack on diverse urban areas, attack on people of color orchestrated by our federal government and rooted deeply in a white supremacist agenda. We've seen that around the city, around the state, around the country in terms of attacks on DEI programs, initiatives, and funding, which have impacted everything around here, including programs that we've been talking about here today that have lost funding because of that. Attacks on birthright citizenship for people of all backgrounds, right? Removal of TPS protections for people of a variety of different countries. This isn't, we're focused on the impact of this policy, in particular immigration enforcement, on immigrant and refugee young people and their families here in our city. But we know that it is part of a broader agenda which seeks to erase and attack almost everything that makes our city in particular special, unique, dynamic, and the wonderful place that it is for our young people and for all people of color and for all residents here in our city. And so just really appreciate all the people who are recognizing the intersectionality of all of that and the way that attacks on one part of our community today are replicated in attacks on other parts of our community tomorrow, and that the struggle to be the kind of city and to make sure, especially for our young people, that this is a place where they can grow up in safety and achieve the goals they have for themselves and that their parents have for them, is true for our young people of all backgrounds and all our communities. Thank you.
No, thank you, Vice Chair Parker, as usual, bringing additional moral clarity to the moment, but also calling it what it is in terms of attack on diversity and what it means not only now, but also what's happening in terms of our country and the intersectionality, as you mentioned. As you can see, we care very deeply about this issue. It's one that is with us, and we don't see it ending in a foreseeable future. That being said, we continue this battle, and we will recess this hearing. We're not over because we know there will be an opportunity for us to come back, revisit some of these issues, and hear from additional members members around what we need to be doing, what we are doing, and what's possible. So again, I do thank the folks who came out here today, who filled these chambers. I thank you for the faithful who stood out here for, what is it now, almost 4 hours. And it speaks to, again, the interest that you have in terms of this issue. So with that, we will stand adjourned. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay cool, and I'll see you soon.